You was really good at making an entrance, Katie, and that's what I appreciate about you.
Oh, is that what you... Oh, no, that makes sense.
5 alone, fuck it, just subscribed for 17 months.
It's my show, ding dong.
Hello! Get that energy drink going. Hey Sam, how's it going? You got a new account? Or no, you didn't. It was 17 months. Damn. Hell yeah, dude. It is my show, Ding Dong. And welcome to the show. It is debate night in America. It's debate night in Philadelphia. I hope everyone's having a good day so far. Good start to their week. I'm not drunk. Oh, it's a Celsius. Renamed once again. Yes, it's gonna be. Well, it's gonna be interesting because it's a big night. It is. It's the first one since the disastrous Trump-Biden debate. Kamala's got all the wind at her back, so she's got to live up to all that. And I don't know if people remember this, but she didn't do too hot in a lot of the debate. Well, she had that one moment. What was that? There was the one moment with. God, I'm gapping on her name. But she was talking about the bus stuff. That bus line, I think. Something about segregation in schooling. I remember. I'd have to look it up. What was that one line? She had that one good line. I only vaguely remember it. It's so long ago. Was it against Joe Biden?
Asking
Woo!
support.
5 alone, fuck it, gifted a tier 1
Hell yeah,
subscription
tier
to
1
Fargo
sub.
is high.
Hell yeah, dude. So this was the moment I think I'm thinking of. Was it with Tulsi Gabbard?
That
That I was
in
thinking
this
of?
campaign, we've also
Hell yeah.
heard, and I'm going to now direct
Get a-
this at
get a
Vice
nice, good
President
job?
Biden.
I got a
I
4%
cannot
raise this
believe
year.
You are a racist.
So I'm rolling
And
it.
I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear
tweet out
you
that we're live.
talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day.
Big step.
And
We're
that little
tweeting it
girl
out.
was me.
Tweeting out now to like I'm at like almost
I
I'm
will
at
tell you that
3,800
on this
followers on
subject,
Twitter
it
now,
cannot be an
which is
intellectual
nuts.
debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously.
Coke has an
We have
Oreo
to act
flavor?
swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to
That's either gonna
a
be
requirement that all my
awful
special agents
or
would wear body cameras
delicious.
And keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
Oreo Oaks, so they're probably like
It's a
Yeah.
mischaracterization of my position across
Someone
the
bought a
board. I
factory.
did not praise racist. That is not true. Number one. Number two, if we want to
Yes,
have
yeah,
this
yeah.
campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, the busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line
the
here is,
diabetic
look,
flavor.
Everything I've done in my career, I ran
was
civil
Delaware
rights.
in
I continue to
flames?
think we have to make
That's a
fundamental
good point,
changes in
Rogan.
civil
I
rights.
almost didn't
Those
catch
civil
that. I don't
rights,
think
by
I
the way,
caught that when I was
include
watching it.
Not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
Delaware was in flames over
Do you
the
agree today? Do you agree
Martin Luther
today
King assassination.
that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a
oppose.
failure
Why-
of
but
the
why?
states to integrate
No, but-
public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California.
She never
public
actually.
schools
Never
almost
mind.
2
I think
decades
going.
after
She
Brown
was
Board
good
of
in the
Education.
debates.
Because
She just wasn't very good in the primaries. She just like
So that's where the federal government
nobody
stepped in.
voted for her,
The
but
Voting Rights Act,
she is good at
Civil
debates,
Rights
actually.
Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA.
If she
because
brings
there
this
are
shit
moments
tonight, it's
in
gonna be
history
good.
Where states fail to preserve the civil rights of
I
all
have
people.
supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran.
I mean, in fairness, like, just look at how much Obama aged from 2016, or not 2016, from like 2008 to 2012. It aged this shit. Like, being president, it like you don't get like you're probably not sleeping. Like, that was the one thing I was laughing at watching The West Wing, is just considering how detrimental to your health it would be if you actually got this little sleep. And I'm sure it's probably not that inaccurate. Is that like you just get like maybe, if you're lucky, 1 or 2 hours of sleep a night. And you're constantly worried about people nuking. Like, I'm sure like, it's probably it messes you up. And he wasn't a spring chicken to begin with, so it's like after a while it just sort of wears on you. Oh, this is the Tulsi Gabbard Kamala moment, maybe.
Rot that has sickened the Democratic Party. What is the rot you see in the Democratic Party?
That our Democratic Party, unfortunately,
No, Kamala
is not
stayed in
the
past
party
California,
that is
didn't she?
of, by, and
Because she
for
didn't win
the
anything in
people.
California.
It's
That's
a
why
par-
that was one of the
party that
things,
has
is
been
why
and
she dropped out,
continues
is
to
when
be
she did so
influenced
poorly in
by the
California.
foreign policy establishment
At least
in
that's what I
Washington,
remember.
represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds our Democratic Party, takes it out of their hands, and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country, a party that actually hears the voices of Americans who are struggling all across this country, and puts it in the hands of veterans and fellow Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy doctrine of regime change wars, overthrowing dictators in other countries, needlessly sending my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way to fight in wars that actually undermine our national security and have cost us thousands of American lives. These are wars that have cost us as American taxpayers trillions of dollars since 9/11 alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our infrastructure needs. As president, I will end this foreign policy, end these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people right here at home.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama, who has spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is.
I didn't even intend to, but we should just do some, like, because I had a bunch of other videos lined up. Just watch some greatest hits of Kamala.
What we need on the stage
do some what are some good Trump debate moments?
And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump.
So all I can think of are like ones that are like funny in ways that I don't think he intended them to be funny.
And bring the party and the nation together.
Except for that one line he said after Biden. Like that, him saying, I don't even think he knows what he means there. I think that's what, that killed Biden. Like that was it. That was the Doctor Who, doesn't she look tired line.
Smears and innuendos, because
once he said that on the debate stage, it was over.
The substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously the responsibility that the president has to serve as commander-in-chief, to lead our armed forces, and to make sure always, no, I'm not going to put
funny to
party
remember
interests
Tulsi
first.
Gabbard
I will put the interests of the American people
ran
I want
this
to briefly give Senator Harris
primary.
a final second to respond.
I believe that what our nation
he's not exactly
right now
like
is a nominee who
he's
can speak
entertaining, but it's not like he's actually that good at arguing.
Standing
Like from a
Kamala Harris for the people, and it
a
was
skill
about all people, regardless of
angle.
their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of where they live geographically, regardless
He's good
of
at
the party
debates
with
in the
which
way
they're
a
registered to
bully
vote
is
or the
good.
language their grandmother speaks. We need someone on this debate stage in November who has the ability to unify the country and to win the election. And I believe, again, I am that candidate.
Thank you for watching this video from NBC4 New York. You can subscribe by tapping the button below me, and on the left you can see our latest updates.
All right, well.
Our next stop is
Hey, it's
Montreal,
Raffi.
and that is where the federal NDP is meeting to chart a new course after ripping up the supply and confidence deal with the Liberals and to lend support.
Here in Canada, I guess I feel like I should probably do some Canada stuff before we go to the Americans. Currently, the Liberal caucus is retreating in British Columbia for God knows what reason. There's not even a Liberal Party in BC. The Liberal Party that did exist hasn't existed for a year, and it wasn't a Liberal Party. It just had that name. It was basically a center-right party. They're polling in third, behind the NDP and the Conservatives. Conservatives are polling anywhere from like 39% to like 50%. And these are the federal Conservatives, I mean. Because there is a BC Conservatives who are further to the right of what the BC Liberals were, which was a Conservative party. Are you confused yet? And there's also the BC NDP, which is kind of like a leftist party, but they're almost closer to a liberal party. During the pandemic, and I think they had an election in like late 2020, early 21, a provincial election, and most of those voters were Trudeau Horgan voters, which was the last leader of the. So it's all mixed up. Someone said this, and I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want them to get yelled at, but it is kind of funny. But they compared BC to Afghanistan, governing Afghanistan, wherein just geographically, it's not one single cohesive like province. It's a bunch of individual enclaves, and your politics and outlook is almost entirely decided by what like valley or mountain you live under or in. Which obviously there's some other differences, but it is a very funny way to look at BC. And now that I've said that, now you know why I'm not saying who told it to me first, because I don't want them getting letters. So Liberals are in BC, and the NDP are in Montreal, where there is a fairly significant by-election that is coming up on Monday to try and it's to replace former Attorney General and Justice Minister David Lametti, longtime Liberal. He stepped away last year. Oh my God, was it last year or was it earlier this year? God, so much shit happens. I should have like notes. That would probably be helpful. So he stepped away. They're filling. I think it's actually probably was like last fall, almost a year or at least half a year ago, because I think they have to do it within 6 months. God, I'm so bad at my job. So the by-election to replace and find a new MP for that seat is coming up, and I think there was one polling aggregation I saw that gave the NDP like a 70% chance of winning, and then there's some polling that even says that the Bloc Québécois could win that seat, which would be interesting. Which was the same day that the Conservatives started making a big fluster about Craig Sauvé, who is the NDP's candidate, about a pamphlet he put out about Gaza that had a Palestinian flag on the flyer rather than a Canadian flag, and it also, I believe, said like "stop the genocide." It's accusing Israel of genocide, so that caused some people to be upset. And I just thought the timing of those two things were interesting. I'm not saying they're connected. Just they happened one after the other. So yeah, let's see what Raffi has to say about what the NDP are thinking. Looks like they've seen the same polling I have.
To a key by-election campaign that's happening in Montreal. The CBC's David Thurton is in the city outside
almost
the
like
NDP
they have
campaign
some
office
kind
in
of
that
like
by-election riding, and he joins me now.
Inside,
so David, how are the NDP feeling
polling
about the
they
chances
have
in that
inside internal
actually
polling,
inside the campaign office? We're in the heat of a campaign that is in its last couple of days. They are down to the wire. I'm just going to show you.
David's a cool guy too.
Campaign office looks like. I mean, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something, maybe it's interesting, but you know, there's a bit of a hive. It's a bit of a buzz.
It would be funny if David
here.
was doing this blind. He just hadn't
some
seen
volunteers here.
the
some
office
clipboards
yet.
are going to be going out doing some
There
door-to-door
was just nothing
knocking.
in there.
I'd
Just an
imagine
empty room.
soon. Over
Hey, there's
there,
Craig
you can
Sauvé.
see,
That's
you know,
that
a
guy
lone
in the
person
background.
making a phone call. But there's some other places that people could be making a phone call. And there's a bunch of people behind me doing who knows what, David, but they look busy. This is a couple more days, only a couple more days until that by-election happens here in this Montreal riding of LaSalle-Verdun in Mard, and also the other by-election that's happening in Winnipeg in Elmwood-Transcona. I've been speaking with party officials. I've been speaking with MPs. I've been speaking with the NDP candidate.
I did see the Dave Grohl news.
You know, quite optimistic. They are quite hopeful that they can better their chances than they did in previous elections in this Montreal riding. They came in third behind the Bloc Québécois. One party official told me, David, that if they come in second, that would be, you know, something that they'd be pleased with. But there is some hope that they could maybe pull off some sort of upset. This riding is currently held by the Liberals, formerly by David Lemeni. The Liberal candidate, Laura Palestini, is, like Craig Sauvé, also a Montreal City Councillor. You know, there's some name recognition there, but the parties are very confident that Craig Sauvé has a bit more name recognition.
All my sound
and that could make this riding quite competitive for them. They're not ready to say that they're going to take it, but they are quite optimistic. On that other by-election that's happening in Winnipeg that I was mentioning, there's a bit more caution when it comes to how the party feels that they're going to do. In this riding, they're on the offensive, but in that Winnipeg riding, David, they're on the defensive.
And to have to post it to Instagram, like it would have been funny if it was like a notes app apology.
They're quite open. They're saying that this is a battle between blue and orange voters, that this riding has been previously held by the Conservatives. That's the question. And although it has been within the NDP family for a number of years, there is a bit of a fear and there's a bit of a concern
it could be that light blue of the bloc.
You know, the results,
I don't know how likely that
could be quite tough on Monday night, but they're still quite optimistic on how things are going to go there. So in a couple of moments, a couple of members of the NDP caucus and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh are going to be in this campaign office, going door to door, trying to pull the vote for their candidate Craig Sauvé, trying to lend some NDP star power to help, hopefully they hope, tip things in their favor, David.
Okay, so look, David, they're not just there to campaign. The caucus is also there for their strategy meetings ahead of the resumption of Parliament on Monday. Well, what's on the agenda at these meetings?
That's, you know, they're also, like you said, they're holding this retreat in Montreal. They're behind closed doors for most of it, but you talk to officials, you talk to MPs, and they're, you know, they have to chart their way forward after they have ripped up the deal with the Liberals. So a lot of the time in this caucus meeting is going to be spent talking about how they handle the situation when Parliament returns. We know from the caucus chair and also Jagmeet Singh that they're going to be approaching every vote from this government on a vote-by-vote basis, on a case-by-case basis. So we were trying to get a sense from MPs and Jagmeet Singh, well, what are your guardrails? What's your red line? What's your priorities? What is your demand? They essentially said, you know, making sure that this government delivers for Canadians on affordable housing, the cost of living. If there are pieces of legislation or pieces of policy that don't reflect the real crisis that Canadians are facing, the NDP will not support that. They're also focused on election preparedness. We saw a lot of movements this week when it comes to that. Like the NDP election machinery was kicking into another gear. We saw the appointment of their campaign director. We also saw the party release a video. They're calling it an ad, which is, you know, definitely has that campaign style sort of feel. So there is that feeling that they are, you know, working hard to win these by-elections in Winnipeg and Montreal, but they're getting ready for a bigger campaign that can happen at any moment.
All right, David, thank you so much. That's the CBC's David Thurton in Montreal.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, here was the presser. Got Immigration Minister Mark Miller, and then we got Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly.
Commencer avec quelques mots. Has been arrested in charges related to an attempt to cross the border for a terrorist plot. I can confirm that Mohammed Khan is a Pakistani national who entered Canada on May, or was issued a visa in May of 2023, and was given and entered Canada on the 24th of June of the same year, so 2023. This is all that I'll be commenting on this individual. Obviously, there
This kind of sucks. He
criminal
wasn't even
charges
immigration minister
pending
at the time.
as politicians,
But now he just
as
has to
elected
wear it.
officials,
He was
in order to make
he was
sure
doing a really
the
fucking
judicial
good job
process is not
at,
compromised, although we share the goals of the prosecutors in question.
Wait.
It's very important that we don't comment, and actually, it's dangerous to comment any further.
Yeah, he was
Any
Crown Indigenous Relations.
defense
sorry.
lawyer is looking at elected officials
Crown
and the
Indigenous
comments about this
Relations.
case,
Everyone liked him there. And then he got
salivating
shuffled to
at any
immigration,
comment
and
that
now
was
he just
made
has to
that, could
wear
be seen
all
as
of this
compromising
shit.
the judicial process. This is something that any responsible politician needs to be aware of. It's highly careless of Pierre Poilievre and his team to be firing their mouths off again. Any defense attorney is looking at that and just chomping at the bit to be able to make that part of their process and perhaps even compromise the case. Mr. Poilievre has experienced prosecutors on his team. They should be counseling him to shut his mouth like any responsible politician in this case.
First, shut your yap. Now, shut your mouth.
Well, first and foremost, this was a successful operation, and any security operation in a country like Canada is multifaceted, whether it's at the border or when it's in Canada and we have our police services that are acting responsibly and arresting these people as they gather the evidence. Catherine, Secretary Garland, Merrick Garland, contacted the Minister of Public Safety to congratulate our security forces for apprehending these individuals. I think our American partner would be highly disappointed to see elected officials firing their mouths off about and speculating about this case and its outcome. We owe it to Canadians to keep them safe, to actually let the process unfold. And again, as we share the objectives and the goals of the prosecution, we actually owe it to Canadians to be quiet about the facts and not speculate and let the court court case run its course. We take any security breach and any entry into Canada very seriously, and there is a multifaceted way of being able to apprehend these individuals.
He does
Let's
not
be
like
naive.
him.
A
He's
determined
made it
individual
like
can
I think
gain
he was.
access to this
He
country,
did an interview
and that is for the security
with
services
my
inside our
colleague
country
Chelsea
to apprehend
Nash.
this person if they
no, it wasn't
if
a
they
podcast.
commit a
It
crime
was
or if they're about to
sort
commit
of
a crime,
column.
and that's exactly what happened.
And he
Our
had.
police forces
I'd have to
did
go
their
through
jobs
it and
arrested
find
the
it.
individual, and we'll let the
But
court
yeah,
case
no, he does
take
not
its
like
course.
Pierre at all.
Mais vous présumez qu'on l'a pas déjà fait. Chaque individu qui vient ici, que ce soit comme étudiant, surtout que quand c'est un étudiant, doit passer la biométrie. Présumons pas qu'il y avait des carences sans avoir les faits, les preuves à l'appui. C'est clair qu'un individu ou un groupe d'individus qui ont...
For Mark Miller, the fight with Pierre Poilievre is personal. Calls him a charlatan and a snake oil salesman. Where is it? At some point, we have to continue to point out to Canadians that Pierre Poilievre is a charlatan and a snake oil salesman. And at some point, we've all been, and I'm not blaming anyone, but we've been fooled by a snake oil salesman. I think we need to be more vocal in pointing that out. Because to me, it's personal, and it's about the future of the country. Yeah, no, he's not a big fan. I think that's fair to say.
Qui n'ont pas nécessairement les meilleurs intérêts du Canada à cœur peuvent potentiellement entrer au sein du pays. Puis c'est ça ouvert. Puis on se doit de processus judiciaire au privé. Puis au caucus sur de pensée puis.
I want to ask you about a case involving temporary foreign workers, specifically in Ottawa with a construction company. They've been found in violation of labor laws by the Ontario Ministry of Labour for wage theft. This company hires these workers from Jamaica and a whole bunch of things not payment and that sort of thing. So we wanted to know, first of all, how will the federal government hold employers who exploit foreign workers to make sure that they are accountable for these kinds of practices?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, we have to crack down on outright fraud. We will be continuing to do that along with our provincial counterparts. It's clear, and we saw that even though I disagreed with some of the comments made by the UN Special Rapporteur in sort of the inflammatory language he used. Some of the realities that he described do happen and do exist in the temporary foreign worker space, and it's something that we owe it to ourselves to fix.
Yeah,
right.
Kyle, go get some
there
sleep.
is
But
wage
thanks for
on
stopping
the
by.
margins. There is wage depression.
You know, I was
and
thinking
wage
about it.
depression,
He
and
was
it's something I think
probably,
we need
Miller
to
was
tack
probably
head on.
shuffled
Again,
into
if
immigration like the
employers are not
week
abiding by the
this
law,
guy
they
who
need to
got
be
caught
prosecuted to the
planning
full
a
extent of it.
terrorist attack. Like, the same week that dude got his visa approved, and now he's just, it's all his fault.
There are many programs to keep them in the country, notably so that they can testify in this case. And I also have a program within my department that gives them the ability to get gives them the, let me finish, Rafi, that gives them the ability to be able to stay here on a longer basis.
Not done speaking,
Again,
Rafi.
under normal circumstances, as temporary foreign workers, they would have had to leave at some point. So this is not an opportunity for people to stay over and above the time that they were committed to staying. But again, if they are needed in this country for a variety of reasons, there are a number of programs that they can use, especially one that allows them to testify in the case so that the employers can be held to account. Rafi, sorry.
Just English on immigration levels. About a year ago, your government used to say it's perhaps a little racist to even suggest that immigration levels are linked to the bad shape of
Oh, okay, no, it was the next month.
Well, I think
Now
we,
that
I
I'm
think what
looking
we
at
said,
it.
I don't think we said it's racist to suggest that.
It's the guy
I think
that
what we
visa
said is
was issued in May.
People have been tendentious in
He
their
came into
in their,
Canada in June, and then
in their
the
haste to link it
cabinet
entirely
shuffle
to
was
immigration.
July.
And I think that still is the case.
Terrorism
but
is
it
not
also naive
demure.
to
You're very
ignore
very
the fact
correct,
that immigration
Rogan.
volumes have impacted
The opposite of
affordability.
demure.
And as the economic circumstances change in this country, so does the posture of the government of
I mean,
Canada.
I think
Again,
it's
we can
it's
do
a
this
little bit
without
okay
calling
to
each
make
other
jokes
bigots.
about it because they
We can do
did
this
catch the guy and
in the context
before
where
he
we're
did
actually having a
anything.
rational
So
discussion about the national interest of Canada and whether we need to
I think
reduce
it's fine
immigration
to
levels.
make a joke about how
And if so, to what extent? Blaming
we're
everything on
okay.
immigrants is exactly what it is, and I don't think it's right, because if it's not accurate and you try to solve the problem, you're not solving it by simply cutting down on immigration levels. You have to actually deal with other things, whether it's Airbnb, whether it's interest rates that weren't caused by immigration, whether it is the failure of successive governments to provide adequate housing at the provincial level or even at the federal level. Those are all issues that you cannot blame immigrants for. No one is crediting immigrants for bringing down the interest rates, but we did sort of, by the back door, some people directly start to attribute the increase in interest rates to or affordability to immigrants. So we have to have a real conversation about it. David?
I don't think
I didn't
anyone's
hear the first part,
really
David.
doing that yet.
Sure. He was on a student visa. Yeah, he was granted a student visa in May of 2023, and he entered at Pearson Airport June 24th of 2023 that year.
And does that spark some particular concern about how student visas are granted then?
I'm not going to speculate on the various original ways that people have ill intentions towards Canada coming to this country, or whether they were developed while people were here. Again, that's speculation. I mean, we're always concerned about how people obtain their visas, particularly if it's through fraudulent means. I've taken a number of steps throughout the summer to turn the screws a bit on that process. But again, this is a criminal case. It's ongoing, and it's careless to speculate further. Laurence? Encore une fois, Laurence? Faudrait lui poser les questions directement. Laura?
What is your message to Canadians who have reasonable concerns about the security of our immigration system?
Well, I think Canadians can be confident that that our security systems and apparatus has actually worked. We are constantly looking internally at what we can do to make sure Canadians continue to be safe. But again, no one can pretend and stand honestly in front of you and say that a well-determined actor can't come to this country. And that's why we have the security apparatuses that we have in this country. And then the two cases that you mentioned.
I mean, that is I guess the best argument is that in this case, the system did kind of work because they caught him. And it's like you can't know when someone's applying.
I don't think you have any questions. You asked all of them to Mark Miller.
Here's Jolie.
So, bonjour à tous. Ça me fait plaisir de vous voir. So, first and foremost, I've been a lot in my writing and doing a lot of door-to-door this summer. And what I heard a lot is people are very preoccupied with affordability issues. And we know that affordability issues are linked to what's going on in the world. We know we're dealing with 3 wars and lots of tensions, particularly in Asia. And so in that sense, my job as foreign minister is to defend Canada's interests and to bring much more peace and stability to the world. And to that end, this morning I spoke with the new foreign minister of Ukraine and with the chief of staff of President Zelensky. And we spoke about the very important peace formula that Ukrainians have been working on and that we're participating in. Donc en français, mais ça me fait plaisir de vous voir aujourd'hui. Cet été, j'ai eu l'occasion de rencontrer plusieurs Québécois, plusieurs Canadiens, faire beaucoup de porte-à-porte. Et puis, ce qu'on entend aux portes, ce que les gens nous disent, c'est essentiellement que les gens trouvent que la vie coûte trop cher. Et donc, dans les circonstances, on sait qu'il y a beaucoup des enjeux liés au coût de la vie qui sont liés au fait qu'il y a 3 guerres présentement dans le monde, puis il y a beaucoup de tensions en Asie. Alors, mon boulot comme ministre des Affaires étrangères, c'est encore et toujours de protéger les intérêts du Canada, d'amener aussi un texte-là, le chef de l'Union sur l'Ukraine. Nouveaux permis qui ont été faits. J'ai suspendu une trentaine de choses, ni de compte tout. C'est pas pertinent de faire en sorte qu'il n'y ait pas d'armes avec la compétition. I'll just say it in English, okay? So, first and foremost, our policy has been clear. Since January 8th, I have not accepted any form of arms export permits to be sent to Israel. And so following that, I asked my department to look into any existing permits of arms or parts of arms that could have been sent to Israel. Following that, I suspended this summer around 30 existing permits of Canadian companies, and we're asking questions to these companies. Meanwhile, as for the question regarding General Dynamics, our policy is clear.
And I think
we
this
will
was
not
a
have any
shout
form
out to
of
Breach
arms
Media
or
who had
parts
this
of arms
first.
be sent
Apologies if it's
to
someone
Gaza.
else, if it was the Tyee,
Period.
but I think it
How
was
they're
Breach
being
Media
sent
who had this
and
story
where they're being
on the
sent is irrelevant. And so, therefore, my position is clear, the position of the government is clear, and we're in contact with General Dynamics.
the General Dynamics story. I was trying to remember.
Absolument pas. J'ai eu des conversations avec lui hier encore. Ça fait longtemps que je connais Marc. Et puis l'objectif est de faire en sorte qu'on ait la meilleure équipe pour gérer l'économie canadienne. Comme je vous ai dit, ce que j'ai entendu cet été, c'est que les gens sont vraiment, vraiment préoccupés avec le coût de la vie. La vie coûte trop cher. Les gens veulent que leur facture d'électricité coûte moins cher. Ils veulent s'assurer. Leur famille a entendu sur mon... Aux portes? Ben, je pense que les gens, on sent qu'il y a une anxiété,
hey Mantra.
on sent qu'il y a une
Melanie
frustration.
Jolie,
Moi, c'est ça que
the
je suis ministre des
Liberals
Affaires
are in
étrangères. Donc,
their
je vois ce qui
caucus
se passe au
retreat in
pays, puis je
BC.
vois aussi
And
partout
earlier
à travers
today,
le monde. Les
Melanie
gens sont
Jolie,
préoccupés. On n'a
Foreign
jamais
Affairs
vécu
Minister,
autant de
announced
changements
that, Canada
en
would
une
be
génération.
suspending about, I
Donc,
think,
ça
30
crée un inconfort, ça crée une frustration.
contracts for
Puis, je comprends, parce que je
military
sais que le coût
equipment,
de la vie coûte trop cher. On le voit, on a juste à faire notre
that were
épicerie.
being
Et donc,
sold
dans
to
les
Israel.
circonstances, nous, là, la meilleure
And as
stratégie,
well, I
c'est de
think
faire
they're
en sorte d'être
doing
là où,
something,
de rencontrer les gens où
asking
ils sont,
questions,
d'être
whatever
là
that
où ils
means,
sont. Puis
about
nous, notre but,
a
comme gouvernement,
sale
c'est de
General
gouverner.
Dynamics is
Fait que là, on a
doing
mis en
to the
place
US,
des programmes
which would
super
then be sent
importants
to
pour
Israel.
réduire le coût de la vie. Faire en sorte qu'au final, là,
I don't know.
les gens vont recevoir de l'argent
know if the government
pour-
actually has
quand ils vont-
the
quand ils
ability
vont
to
au
stop
dentiste,
the sale
quand ils vont avoir accès,
to the
quand ils vont
US,
vouloir acheter des médicaments comme
we'll
l'insuline,
see.
la contraception,
I have to look
quand
into
ils vont
that.
vouloir aussi faire en sorte d'envoyer leur enfant à la garderie. Fait que c'est des façons pour nous de trouver
How are you, Mantra?
des
You're welcome.
solutions aux problèmes
That's
qui sont
the
très,
job.
très réels, qui sont essentiellement que la vie coûte trop cher. Yes, Mary Kay. Just a second. Yes, Mary Kay.
Alexander Magda said yesterday, you can't win in the next election with Justin Trudeau off the ticket. I mean, before you convince Canadians, don't you have to convince people inside?
Well, of course, and we're doing that.
So what's the message? What is
That guy, that got a little high.
what do you say to them to convince them that the polls are not what they are or that they're so changeable?
You know, Mary Kay, what I heard this summer was Canadians don't want elections. They just want us to do the job. They just want us to govern. And that's what we're doing. We're governing. We're taking tough decisions. Why? Because times are tough. And so, wait, let me finish. I'm speaking. So, the reality is, like I said in French, is We know that cost of living is too expensive, that people are frustrated with it. So what do? We do everything to reduce the cost of things and services.
Good,
so
just
that's
back
why
from
we
Powell's
have
ordering.
dental
You
care.
should-
That's
should
why
be
we're
reading that
working on a
comprehensive
Medicare
exam.
plan. That's why we have
I'm good.
also
Just,
affordable housing.
waiting for this
And
debate
that's
to start.
also
I think we
why
got about
we're really working on childcare.
just less than
These
40
are all
minutes.
things that the government are doing. And good news, we have new people now that will be there to help us to make sure that we have a very strong economy at the same time that the middle class is protected. Yes. I'm convinced we will win.
Flip
Sorry?
that.
Sorry, David.
Sorry, Laurence asked about Mark Carney.
Yeah. Well, I said I know Mark Carney. I've known him for some time now.
Apologies,
and we had a good conversation
Isabella.
yesterday. I think it's good news that he's going to be
I'm not gonna tell
there
you guys
to
who
help
that
us
is, but if
with
you're watching,
economic
you know who you
issues.
are.
C'est sa décision, Louis. Moi, c'est pas à moi à lui dire, là, sincèrement. Moi, je suis
Oh my
toujours
God,
contente
what the
quand il y a
hell
du
did
nouveau monde
Biden
qui se
just-
présente
what
en
did- what
politique.
did he say?
Surtout pour le Parti
What did
libéral,
he
bien
say?
entendu. Oui.
Going off my colleague's question, I mean, you said you can win the election in Toronto, St. Paul, big piece otherwise. What if you see a landslide that's going to happen in Montreal and in Winnipeg? In order to win the majority, you need to win Toronto and Montreal.
We're working on making sure that we get the confidence of electors, voters, maybe, of course, in Manitoba, but I've been working specifically.
No. What did he say? What did he say? What is this? Because I also had a nap. I fell asleep watching Rings of Power, so there's a point between about like 5 o'clock and 6:30ish there, 6:45, where I was dead to the world, so I missed a lot of stuff. Yeah, I like Jolie. She's like anytime like it she's very personable when you talk to her and like gives human answers. Like you feel like you're getting an answer from a person rather than a talking points briefing book.
I'm going up to my granddaughter's birthday in New York. Then we're going to watch a debate. And then tomorrow I'm doing 9/11. I spoke to the Vice President. She seems calm, cool, and collected. I think she's going to do great. And I'm not going to tell you what advice I gave her. I'm going up to my granddaughter's birthday in New York. Then we're going to watch a debate. And then tomorrow I'm doing 9/11. I spoke to the Vice President. She seems calm, cool, and collected. I think she's going to do great. And I'm not going to tell you what advice I gave her.
I need that
I'm
one
going
more
up to my granddaughter's birthday in New York. Then we're going to watch a debate. And then tomorrow I'm doing 9/11. I spoke to the Vice President. She seems calm, cool, and collected. I think she's going to do great. And I'm not
worst
gonna tell you what
possible way to
advice I gave
face
her.
that.
I'm going up to...
You're not doing phrasing anymore? Not doing phrasing?
Phrasing?
And that's why he's not the candidate anymore. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Yeah, no, I saw it because someone texted me that, and it was like, this is how they got the Cheney endorsement. And tomorrow I'm doing 9/11. Is it? Don't you dare clip that. That's just we're gonna miss it. Yeah, conspiracy machine go burr.
Montreal. Yeah.
Oh, and just incredible things. That's so good. Hey, Kodal, how are you? Welcome back to the stream.
Moi, je pense que ça fait 9 ans maintenant qu'on est au gouvernement. Ça fait 9 ans que je suis ministre.
Thank
J'ai
you.
vu
Yeah,
plusieurs
the
différents
summer
conseillers au cours des
hiatus
9 dernières années
was
venir nous
needed.
aider. Donc, c'est une
It's getting a
stratégie,
little
c'est une approche
bit
qu'on a
burnt
eue
out.
au cours des 9 dernières années qui marche. Alors, c'est une bonne nouvelle. Merci.
When they rose for the summer. So I'm like, you know what? All these schmucks are going on and I mean, by schmucks I mean no one absolutely. I would never call anyone a schmuck. But if everyone else was going on vacation, I was going to take a little bit to recharge.
Good morning, everyone. As we all know, the Liberal government is
Well,
holding
I'm
its
fired.
caucus retreat here over the next few days. This is after 9 years of Liberal policies causing untold
First stream
misery
back, and I'm already
to
going to lose my
Canadians
job.
in
Great.
so many ways. This is going into their 9th year of imposing Justin Trudeau's radical
This is Andrew
and
Scheer,
wacko
House
agenda
Leader for the
on
Conservatives.
Canadians. They've spent over $1.3 million over the years having these types of retreats.
Is he in
and it's
BC
all
too?
been the same results.
Or is this
Spoiler alert, the same
Atlantic?
thing's going to happen this week. They're not actually going to come up with any solutions to solve the problems facing
Oh, he's in
Canadians.
Nanaimo too.
All they will do is double down on the same
So he's
failed
crashing
policies that have caused so much
It'd be
hardship.
very
Let's
funny
go
if he
through
like
what that hardship looks like.
just kept like crashing all of their like
Justin
social
Trudeau's
events at night
inflationary
too.
deficit spending has eroded the power of workers' paychecks, meaning that so many Canadians are falling further and further behind, making difficult choices like whether or not to put food on the table or heat their homes.
Oh yeah.
Stories of mothers watering down milk, seniors.
He's looking
skipping
a little
meals. That is the
blonde.
reality.
I
in
don't know if
Canada
that's just the
after
light.
9 years of Justin Trudeau. Millions of Canadians visiting the food bank, many of them for the very first time in their lives. People with jobs being forced to go to food banks because they literally can't afford to put food on the table. That's after Justin Trudeau's inflationary crisis has eroded the purchasing power.
I saw someone
of
call
people's paychecks and
Carney a
savings.
communist
It's also
today, and I'm like, what does
after
that
his
word
carbon
even
tax has
mean
driven
to
up
you?
the price of everything.
Just
And
the
remember,
governor of the
Justin
Bank
Trudeau
of Canada
isn't just
and
satisfied with the
the
carbon
Bank
tax
of
where it is
England.
today. His plan is to quadruple the carbon tax. Today, the Canadian Trucking Association
You keep
put
saying
out
that word. I do not think it
shocking
means what you think it
stats
means.
showing that Trudeau's carbon tax cost the economy, just the trucking industry, $2 billion. And that will rise to $4 billion by 2030. That's $4 billion of transportation costs being dumped onto consumers. That means literally anything that has to be shipped into Canada, trucked from one part of the country to another, costs more because of Justin Trudeau's
Well, I mean,
carbon
he's
tax.
he's
And that's
just going to be
go up
working
year
like he's
after
technically
year
working
after
for
year.
the Liberal Party
Our
as an
communities
advisor.
aren't just less safe.
So it's not
People
even like a
are
he's
living
not
in fear.
even a government
Violent crime is
role
up
or like
across the board after Justin Trudeau's
he's like
decision to implement.
they've brought
a
him
catch
on
and
as like an
release
advisor
policy
for the
bail.
campaign
We hear this
platform,
from
basically.
police associations from
what
coast
I
to
can
coast in
tell.
every province and almost every city, that the crime wave terrorizing Canadian communities is a direct result of Justin Trudeau's changes to Canada's bail system, making it easier for dangerous and repeat offenders to get back on the street. Often,
Or at
the
least
very
that's how
same
it's
day
been
that
sold,
they're
because
arrested
it's
in the
like I
first
know there's
place,
already
only
been
to reoffend.
questions about, well,
Housing.
are you
has
using
driven
government
so many Canadians out of their homes.
resources?
There was a
Like, is he going to
Remax
have
report
staff?
this week that showed
And who's
that
going to pay for that?
14%, one out of every
So that
7
could be
mortgage holders in Canada believe that they will have to sell their home because they won't be
That
able
could
to
be-
afford
could be sticky.
their mortgage renewal. This is a direct result.
Yes,
of
I think it
Justin
was
Trudeau's
Lisa Raitt.
policies. The Bank of Canada
I think I saw it saying
raised
that.
interest
You're
rates to
right.
fight the inflation that Trudeau caused.
it was on-
and now
on
mortgage
Power
holders, when
Politics.
they go to renew, are renewing at 2, 3, 5 times the rates that they were able to secure just a few short years ago. Housing has pushed people. Housing costs have pushed people out of their homes. There's a tragic story just the other day of a senior in her 70s being forced to live in a tent to fill time and time again can no longer afford. Every single Liberal raised the and interest rate brand or who their spec policies have done this. Mark Carney changed that direction. They that direction.
Okay, wait.
9 years of Liberal policies have done this. Mark Carney won't change that direction. Any other Liberal cabinet minister or MP won't change that direction. They all agree with it. They all support those high tax, high spending, high borrowing, inflationary policies. They all support the same policies that unleash crime and chaos and hard drugs as well. Let's take a look at the Liberal Party and their
No, it is
their
separate, but that's the thing
unexplainable
is
devotion
for
the idea
Carney
of providing hard drugs to people.
I don't think there's
who are
like
suffering
for
from
what
addiction.
the position
They all
they've
support
created
that.
for him.
They
It's
voted
not
time
a
and time
government
again to do it. They
position, so I don't
supported
think
their
they're allowed
government's
to use
implementation
government money
of a
for
plan
it.
that
So that's
legalized
the
use
thing,
of hard
is
drugs
making
in public
sure that
places,
it is
like
only
playgrounds and bus
party
stops,
funds
even
and
in hospitals,
resources
to the
that is
point
being
where
used to support
one union
Carney.
told their nurses that they should avoid breastfeeding if they've been walking through rooms where people have been consuming hard drugs in hospitals. This is 9 years of Liberal policy, and Canadians can only expect more of the same. Justin Trudeau
Also, what I was going to say was, there's now that the SACA agreement is the supply and confidence agreement is gone.
All they're talking about is doubling down
obviously
on the same failed
kicked
policies
the
that caused all
speculation
this
about an
heartache to
early
Canadians in the
election
first
up to an
place.
11.
Alors,
But just imagining another year of this. Because it's like, I don't know, because it doesn't feel, I don't feel it. The NDP aren't giving me that vibe. The Bloc Québécois for sure not giving me that vibe. And like, obviously mistakes can happen. You can have, or people can do something that's stupid and completely against their interests. I think Power and Politics, Scott Reed was telling a story about this, but like, they have longer memories than me. But like, Liberals could just screw up whipping a vote one day. Just someone it's been a long week and they're tired and they just forget that someone's not in the room, and then they miss a vote or something. Things can happen. But I'm not getting the vibe that anyone other than the Conservatives, obviously, is going to intentionally force an election anytime soon. Like, the NDP still want pharmacare, and the pharmacare legislation is still in the Senate. It still has to be studied by the Social Affairs Committee in the Senate. And they might have amendments that they want to change, or little tweaks or whatever they want to do, or maybe they want to do, or they're like, we can't support this. Stuff could happen there. And that could delay it. Even when like committee studies and stuff in the Senate goes quickly, it's not that quick. And then I'm sure the Liberals would love to get that one last budget in. And from the stuff that Blanchette said earlier today, they clearly see opportunity for some gains the way the NDP did. So they're not going to give that up anytime soon. So the more I think about it, I'm like, and then also there's the foreign interference inquiry is starting back up on this Monday. And that was apparently a huge big deal. And it's studying the NSICOP report that alleged that like 11 possibly 11 parliamentarians are semi-witting, unwitting, or fully witting, like agents of a foreign government. So they're going to be studying that. And it's like, if an election happens, what happens to that? Also, why we're going to have an election before we finish the study about whether or not our elections and democratic institutions are secure against like foreign interference. And like the first round of hearings was specifically focused on elections, so Russia barely came up because Russia, as we've now seen, with what it does, isn't really focused on elections. God damn it! I've been speaking over the questions.
That prices can stabilize and from all this hardship. We're going to axe the tax to bring down price about who might lead them in the next election. It's the same failed Liberal policies causing the same hardships for Canadians, pushing so many Canadians out of their homes and so many Canadians to the food bank.
Mr. Chair,
the contrast, I'll take questions in a moment. The contrast is clear. Only the common sense Conservative Party is offering relief from all this hardship. We're going to axe the tax to bring down prices so that you can afford to eat and heat your home. We're going to fix the budget so that prices can stabilize and interest rates can come down so you can stay in your home. We're going to build the homes by
Spicy,
rewarding communities that get new homes built and ensuring that those who don't aren't continually funded year after year after getting poor results. And we're going to stop the crime by taking dangerous and repeat offenders off the street, ending Justin Trudeau's taxpayer-funded experiment with hard drugs in our communities, and once again get Canada back on track and improve the life of all Canadians. Thanks very much.
Mr. Scheer, are you worried about
Oh.
Justin Trudeau quitting and having to face somebody else?
It looks like Mark Carney is going to be appointed as a special advisor to the Liberal leader. I wonder what you think of that.
I believe that is just a smoke and mirrors gimmick. At the end of the day, Mark Carbon Tax Carney loves the same policies that Justin Trudeau has imposed on Canadians. They're basically the same people. Out-of-touch elites that believe that they know better than hardworking Canadians. They believe they know better how to spend your money, the hardworking paychecks that
Basically, but like he's talking about
the same people. Out-of-touch elites that believe that they know better than hardworking Canadians. They believe they know better how to spend your money, the hardworking paychecks that Canadians earn every week. They believe that the carbon tax should be increased. They believe that that criminals should be given preference over law-abiding and honest Canadians. They are basically the same person, and the results won't change in the next. The results for Canadians will not change.
Are the Conservatives worried that Justin Trudeau is going to quit? Because you're trying to frame them all as the same picture, but Canadians are angry at Justin Trudeau. He's pulling behind his party. Are you worried that you won't have the same competitive advantage if he switches leaders?
Well, let's take a look at why Canadians are angry. They're angry because of the policies causing so much harm. They're angry because every time they go in the grocery store, prices are up again. They're angry because they're angry because when they go to renew their mortgage, they're looking at 2 or 3 times the payment that they had just a few years ago. That's why they're angry. So it doesn't matter who the leader of the party is. It's the policies that have caused the hardship, and that won't change after this retreat. It won't change after this fall session. As long as the Liberals are in power, life will continue to get worse for
Yeah, but that's not very. Good luck with that as a campaign slogan.
A follow-up on the Carney question. We'll do one and a follow-up.
David, we get 3 questions.
One and a follow-up.
Oh my God.
Follow-on Carney. Here's the follow-on Carney. Is this. Jim Flaherty, Mark Carney, Stephen Harper were like this. They worked closely together to save us in the 08-09 recession. Why wouldn't a guy like Mark Carney be an asset to any prime minister?
Just look at what Mark Carney has said on the carbon tax. He says it served its purpose. He loves it. He loves the same policies. He loves the same policies that use taxpayer-funded drugs, take taxpayers' money to fund drugs going to our communities. There are reports out of many police associations across the country, police forces across the country, saying they're finding government-produced, government-distributed hard drugs in the community. They're seizing them. So Justin Trudeau's drug policy is causing the drug crisis. Mark Carney supports that. Mark Carney supports all of these extreme policies that have caused
the policies are calling the drug crisis? I thought it was the drugs.
N'importe qui serait le chef du Parti libéral, les résultats vont être les mêmes pour les Canadiens. Parce qu'ils sont tous en accord. Ils sont tous sur la même page. Ils aiment les politiques de la taxe sur le carbone.
The drug crisis
qui va augmenter
predates the
chaque
policies.
année. Ils aiment les politiques de la justice criminelle qui donnent les droits aux les criminels dangereux avant les droits des Canadiens honnêtes. Ils sont tous en accord. Alors, le message pour les Canadiens aujourd'hui est avant de la session du Parlement qui résume la prochaine semaine, c'est avec le gouvernement libéral.
He does have a very particular
rien va changer.
grasp of
qui
the bell long.
Qui serait le chef, n'importe qui
Though
est
mine
le
is
partenaire dans la coalition, les résultats va être le
very
même.
peculiar.
Thank you, that's it. Thank you.
Do the Conservatives support prorogation? Do you
Thank
support
you.
prorogation, sir? Can you clarify your party's position? Would you support prorogation if the Liberals do it?
Well, first of all, that is.
He's tried to get out of this scrum like 3 times
he'll have
now,
to
I
explain
think.
to Canadians why he wants another week of summer vacation. He'll have to explain.
Keeps
to
taking
Canadians
the bait.
Why, as they've been working
His
hard
chief
all
of
summer
staff
and
needs to
working
get
hard
him
in
out of
fall,
there.
why he's not going to. But again, at the end of the
Marik
day,
has
as long
got
as
him in a
Liberals are
tractor
power,
beam.
They are all offering the same thing. They are all offering the same policies. No one's talking about undoing the damage. And that's a point I just want to reinforce. It's not that this government has failed to respond to external threats properly.
That
It's
almost
that they
kind of
have
seems like if
caused
there's
the
any
problems facing Canadians. They've caused the inflation crisis with their massive money
big,
printing and borrowing.
big glowing weak spot
crisis with their carbon tax that keeps going
in
up.
the Conservatives'
They've caused the crime and chaos crisis
communication
by
so far
releasing
is
dangerous offenders, often the very same day that they're
whenever they
arrested
get
in the
dragged
first place.
into the debates.
So all of these problems facing Canadians will not
With
go away
reporters.
as long as the Liberal Party.
Though
is in
depending on
power.
who you
And
ask,
only a
they
common
come at
sense
like
conservative
they
government
look
led by
really
Pierre
good there.
Poilievre will
So
axe
it's
the
like
tax,
it's like
fix the budget,
those are also
build the
kind
homes,
of
and stop the
Rorschach
crime
tests
so that
in
Canadians
themselves.
can have a high quality of living.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Does Canada have a Veep type show? No. Though it is funny because you could do because Veep is based off of Yes Minister or no. I think Veep is based off of The Thick of It, and The Thick of It is based off of Yes Minister, which is funny. Where you could probably adapt that better for Canada. Oh God, that'd be I honestly think might be funnier. Because you could just make it so much lower stakes and sillier. That's funny. I should dig that up, see what that one's like. Oh wait, I had the one Kornacki video lined up to go. Got to get some analysis from Kornacki before we start
between
watching.
Trump and Vice President Harris is neck and neck, which means the stakes couldn't be higher heading into tonight's debate.
The most recent polling and the most recent debate Americans watched effectively ended President Biden's political career. And now with Vice President Harris at the top of this ticket, this may be her only chance to face off against Donald Trump before the election. Let's go right to NBC's Steve Kornacki, who's standing by
Mr.
with
Kornacki.
some of the data for us. What are the numbers telling you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, a close race, obviously, and a couple ways to look at it here. This is the average
I don't
of
know.
all the
Which
major national
writer's
polls
that?
that we've been keeping. Harris 2 points ahead of Trump in the average, 47-45. Now, that is down a tick from where it was a few days ago. Heading into the weekend, Harris had been 3 up on Trump. There have been a number of polls. You've probably seen
apparently
this in the last couple of days.
someone
that have been
said
better
Jonah
for
was
Trump
based off of
nationally. A
Ted
Pew
Cruz.
poll
I don't know
that had
how
the race tied, a
apocryphal
New
or
York
true that
Times
is,
poll that
but
actually
it
had
is
Trump
funny
ahead.
to
So
think
it makes
about.
it 47-45 in the national average. And
Just
one of the
imagining
questions,
that.
too, obviously, we always say it's almost a cliche. It's not the
'Cause that
popular
scene
vote,
is
it's
way
the electoral
funnier
college.
when you
But we
imagine
did
it's,
see when Trump won in
it's Ted Cruz
2016. Of course, he
making
lost
that
the
phone
popular
call in
vote,
a,
won in the
like,
electoral
what, a
college. And in
kindergarten
2020, Trump lost the popular vote by 4.5 points and nearly won in the electoral college. So are we going to see a disconnect again where the Democrats do better
God
in the
damn it,
popular
Surf's
vote,
counter-programming
but have trouble
me?
in the electoral college? That's something to keep an eye on here as we show you the averages.
If you weren't
Again,
streaming,
our
all
polling averages here
144
from
of
the
those people would
7
be here. I know.
core battleground states. And again, you do see some Trump, you see some Harris blue here, but what you
Here's the
really
thing.
see are razor-thin margins, a point
Unlike
and a
these
half,
other
1/10
posers on
of
Twitch, I'm an
1
actual
point,
journalist.
half of 1 point here. So these things just really kind of on a knife's edge.
I'm in the
these states.
papers.
Although you may notice one of them here, Wisconsin, has Harris
I don't
ahead
just
by just
watch
over 4
YouTube
on the
video.
average
I do
right
do
now.
that. I
And
do
that
do
gets to
that.
something else
But
we
I
saw in
also
2016 and 2020, and
do
that
actual
was
journalism.
polling misses.
So they should be
And
watching me and
polling
giving me
misses,
their
particularly
money.
in Wisconsin, in Michigan,
Not the
saw it
Surfs.
in Pennsylvania to some degree. We talk about the
'Cause I don't
polls
call
being
you
off in
Surfs.
16 and 20. They
Just
weren't
kind of
off
rude,
by
honestly, when
the
you
same
think about
amount
it.
in every state. They were just
They do.
particularly off in the upper Midwest, in these northern battleground states. There were polls that had Joe Biden ahead by well over 10 points in Wisconsin in 2020. He ended up carrying it by just 20,000 votes. So
I don't
that's
think you're
another
Surfs. I
thing to
think
be
you're all
looking for
kings
this
and
fall.
queens.
Big question heading into the
And
election. We can
whatever
look at
the
all polls in those
non-binary
states.
term
Has the
for
issue
royalty is.
been fixed? The problem was, it seemed, Trump voters in those states, a lot of
Monarch.
blue-collar white voters in those states, very high populations there. Pro-Trump, not quite, underestimated in the polls the last 2 times. Are they going to be underestimated
And what's
again?
this?
That's very significant
a goo.
if it happens. And then
It's a
just in terms of the
zombie.
stakes for tonight's debate, this from that New York Times poll I mentioned a minute ago. I think this
What's
puts
this?
it in sort of stark contrast
Cranium.
here.
It's a
Asking
skull.
voters simply, do you need to learn more? Do you feel you need to know more about these candidates? More than a quarter said
Anyone
so
seen that
about
one? 'Cause
Kamala
that one's
Harris.
always bouncing
Donald
around my
Trump,
head.
much more of a known commodity. Only 9% say they need to know more about him to make up their minds. And here's an issue. If Harris
Is
has
Surf's
people maybe
for- in
willing
Toronto?
to hear more from her,
I always
one thing
kind
she
of
wants
like.
to use that opportunity
Why do
is
I
to
always think
try
that
to
like
address
Surfs
this.
is like?
Do you see the candidate as says major change
Most
or more of the same
major
status
Canadian
quo. Look at
streamers,
this.
I imagine,
Harris,
are either
the
in
incumbent
Quebec,
VP,
usually
unpopular
Montreal,
administration,
or for some
a
reason in
majority
my
say
mind, like
she's
the
status
prairies.
quo. Trump, a
I don't know
majority, the
why.
former president, say right now represents major
Oh, he's in
change.
Vancouver. Okay,
show
so
you
yeah,
that
I
last
thought he
slide,
was
the opportunity
out
maybe
west.
for Harris tonight. Maybe a way of measuring if she's been successful tonight is if these numbers for her move at all.
Well, I
Steve
think
Bernanke,
it's
thank
like
you so
how
very
much are they
much.
angry at
Well, the
Trudeau
clock
and
is
how much
ticking,
are they
and
just
this building, this
angry
room
in
really starting
general?
to fill
And
up
Trudeau's
after, we only
the
have
guy
5
in the
hours or
seat.
so until the Harris-Trump face-off.
He's in the
last
big
time
chair.
The vice president
So
took
if
the
you're
national
pissed off
debate
at everything
stage
around
was 4
you,
years ago
you're
against
pissed
Mike
off at the
Pence.
guy
But before that,
in
she
charge.
was head-to-head against members of her own party in the 2020.
So that could be a thing where how much of that is like, are they pissed at Trudeau, and how much is it that it's just sort of like a more general pissed. And will that then, if Poilievre defeats Trudeau, will that sort of ambient pissed then just transfer to Poilievre? Because people won't just magically be happier. Oh my God. I was like, Steve Martin looks like shit.
Angry or emotional in the United States.
Apologies to this man.
Craig, good to have both of you with us.
Not easy, right?
Not easy.
For whatever that man looks like, he looks fine. But if that had been Steve Martin, I would have been concerned about what happened to Steve Martin.
Debates, which I would like to say seems like the most thankless job in America, but you both survived. We got Krista Welker here. Hallie's done some primary debates.
I'm out of my
Me
league.
too.
No,
About
this is
12 minutes away.
Lester, first of all, without triggering you, what do you remember?
Actually, we can go through, we'll go through the debate rules so just everyone knows how it's going to work tonight. So they're in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. There will be no live audience and no opening statements, which is an interesting move. They're just going straight into those goddamn questions. They get 2 minutes to answer questions, 2 minutes for rebuttal, additional minute for a follow-up and for follow-ups and clarifications. And then they will have 2 minutes for closing statements. No opening statements, but they will have closing statements. They won't be able to ask questions of each other, only the moderators, which I think is weird. It's a debate. Like, right? Isn't that, like, how is it a debate if they can't, like, directly engage with each other? It's at that point, it's like a long form, like, essay night with some improvisational aspects. So it's 90 minutes. We're getting 2 commercial breaks, and they're muting the microphones. And when I read about this, I was like, it kind of sucks because that puts Harris at a disadvantage, possibly. But it looks like in the first debate, the mics were muted, which was at the request of the Biden campaign, which, because having the mics muted obviously benefited Biden and protected him and insulated him from those sort of exchanges, because he probably wouldn't have been able to do very well had there been the ability to have those back and forths and directly engage each other. Yeah, it's a 2-person job, and like competitive job interview, which I guess that could be beneficial. I don't know. So, but like for the first debate, if the mics were muted for Biden's benefit and Trump agreed to that, the Harris campaign doesn't really have much leverage or much of an argument to make that it should now be unmuted, because now it benefits them. And it looks like Trump did the whole like, well, I'd probably rather have it on, but we agreed to it, so those are the rules. We're just gonna stick to the rules. Harris campaign told CBS News that it was offered assurances that the microphones may be unmuted if there's significant crosstalk between the kids. So if they just start yelling at each other over dead air, then I guess they might put the mics back on. A candidate who constantly interrupts their opponent will be warned by the moderator, and their comments may be relayed to the audience. And if the microphones don't pick up the exchanges, a group of reporters who will be in the room may be able to report anything noteworthy. Ooh, we've just hit 100 messages with Restream chat. This is cool. I don't know if that's we regularly do that, but we've done it in an hour and 18 minutes. All right. Oh, there's a CNN one too.
With the world in chaos, what's really needed is someone to finally make sense of human seemingly mad behavior.
Oh my God, what is happening?
Australian biologist Jeremy
I forgot.
who I consider to be the newest Charles Darwin, has done.
Ads on YouTube are insane when you have all your cookies and stuff. So like this is just a window straight from OBS. So clearly it doesn't have any like cookies, so it has no idea what ad to give me. And when that happens, YouTube gives you the most insane ads. How are they both on commercial breaks at the exact same time? Well, I guess this is your chance to go get drinks before we start, which I think I probably will do right now. So enjoy the NBC lo-fi. I love how all the news plays, because CBC does that too on their live stream. So I like how they're all getting into doing lo-fi shit. It's great. It's real chill. All right. 2 seconds.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Welcome back to our special coverage of tonight's presidential debate between Vice President Harris and former President Trump.
The debate is set to begin just minutes from now. It'll be the first time Harris and Trump meet each other, and it will be in front of the entire country. Tonight also could have a huge impact on the campaign, less than 2 months out from Election Day, with a tight race nationally and in the critical battleground states.
So let's go back to the debate hall in Philadelphia, the spin room. Tom Yamas is there. We're just about 6 minutes away now from the start of this debate, which we will carry in its entirety. Tom, are you starting to feel that buzz of energy?
Oh, you do. And guys, I will tell you something I've noticed that is different about this debate. Usually the spin room gets wild and crazy post-debate. What I'm seeing for the first time is pre-debate spin. You've seen surrogates on both sides sort of flank all the reporters, flank all the sets from all the different news organizations and try to get their message out. There was a ton of commotion about 10 minutes ago, and that's because RFK Jr. came into the spin room. Of course, he was the third-party candidate who has since endorsed former President Trump. He was followed by, I'd say dozens of reporters as he walked through the spin room. We're hearing kind of the same things. Both campaigns are disciplined. They are on message. The Harris surrogates are saying the same thing. Former President Trump is the most experienced presidential debater. This will be a 7th debate. And also, they want to go over reproductive rights, that a vote for Trump is a vote that will limit abortion access. And then on the Trump side, of course, they're hammering the issue that Vice President Harris is untested. She's only done one big major interview. She's doing no town halls. And also, they want to hammer home that they want to put the spotlight, and they hope the candidate does, on the issues of immigration, the economy, and the 2 wars overseas. What I'll be looking for, guys, tonight, who can truthfully answer the question that they are the change candidate coming out of this debate. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thanks very much. Our Washington correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor, has been covering the Harris campaign and joins us now. Yamiche, your thoughts tonight as we're just...
And we're back.
Well, one of the biggest challenges for Vice President Harris, as I've been talking to a lot of sources that are familiar with her debate preparations, are how she's going to differentiate herself from President Biden. Former President Trump is going to...
I saw a tweet where someone was like, they should have gotten Destiny, Stephen Bonnell, to help Kamala with her debate prep.
Even the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the way that it
And
was
honestly,
carried
I
out, or
think
whether she's going to say, I serve at the pleasure of the president. And I
no
agree
shade
with
to
everything
Destiny. I
that
think
he
a
did,
better
but she has
choice
to, in
would
some
have
ways,
been
really carve out what a
Tim the
Harris
Tat Man.
administration is gonna look
Big,
like.
loud,
It's not gonna
orange
just be
rich
a
dude
third
with
term of the
past
Biden administration,
associations
second term
to
of the
men
Biden
who are
administration,
inappropriate
rather.
with
And the
minors.
other thing
Hey,
that
it's
they have to do
the
is not
Champions
get
Club.
pulled into personal attacks by former President Trump. They expect him
It's a
to,
very funny
at some
joke to
point,
like
maybe
3
lose
people.
it. They're going to try to bait her.
Woo!
But she really wants to remain calm because her biggest thing that she wants to do is really
Wait.
introduce herself to undecided voters and voters who might not be familiar with her background, her middle class.
What does IRL voice band mean? I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what you just redeemed.
Make sure that she defines herself. So that's also a big challenge that I'll be watching for, how she does that. Back to you.
All right, NIGH, thank you so much. And let's turn now to NBC's Dasha Burns, who covers the Trump campaign and joins us now.
I just spent 10K points on it. Okay, sweet. Does that mean I should mute myself?
Savannah, you've heard the former president say time and again that he does not do traditional debate prep, that campaigning is his prep, but we are told by sources that over the last
Yeah,
few
okay.
days,
So we'll put it on the timer that I have to mute myself for a minute.
policy sessions, and watch for him to do two things tonight. Two things that his campaign wants him to do. Number one, tie Vice President Harris to President Biden. Make her own what's going on with the economy, what's going on with immigration. And number two, remind voters some of the positions she took back in 2020 when she was running for president that were left of center. Try to paint her as simply too liberal for those moderate swing voters in places like the suburbs of Philadelphia. Of course, that is the plan. That is what the campaign wants, but it's all going to be about the execution in the moment, especially if Harris tries to bait the former president into an outburst. Savannah.
All right, Dasha, thank you.
Let's bring back Kristen Welker and Hallie Jackson. I want to talk about how the vice president has cast herself in this campaign as the prosecutor, going against Donald Trump. Are there limits to that in this format, do you think, of coming off in a prosecutorial way?
Absolutely. When I've spoken to allies who are close to her, they say her biggest challenge tonight is getting specific, but not too specific. She's got to tell the story of how a Harris administration would differ from a Biden administration. That word we keep using, change. How would she change things right now? Does she acknowledge to some extent that the economy is not where she wants it to be? And
Okay, I'm back in the channel realm. Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like, this is a terrible precedent. You can buy my silence for channel points? I don't think that's a good idea. I should get rid of that.
Switching his opinion, particularly when it comes to the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. But again, she's got to walk that fine line.
Yeah, but she also has to answer for some changes in her own positions. Of course, she ran for president in 2020. She came across and positioned herself as a much more progressive type of candidate. Now she's really moving to the
Stu nominees. Just jacked. We've got like we're gonna have to print that. We're gonna have to mint that $1 trillion coin they've been talking about.
No longer supports fracking, for example, something that she has changed her position on as well. You look at Medicare.
Oh no, I'm no jacket. I'm naked.
Watch for the former president to try to go after some of these issues. And I'll tell you, to bring it back to the voters, that panel with Kate Snow is super interesting. The economy came up again and again. And even though this summer, for the first time, inflation dipped below 3% for the first time since March of 2021.
My bare shoulders exposed like a floozy.
Vice President Harris address that moving forward?
And let me briefly go there and talk about his physical performance.
It's a professional stream. We have standards here.
Has tend to be more rambling, disjointed in many of his answers at a time that we were focusing on Joe Biden. Is that something that folks will be watching carefully?
He's now, of course, the older candidate now.
Okay, we will be back with you. It's the top of the hour now, 9 o'clock on the East Coast here in New York and in Philadelphia, the room where it's about to happen. We're just seconds away now from tonight's first and perhaps last presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump.
As we've noted, this will be the first time these candidates have met in person, and it's happening on a debate stage. Also, the first.
That is kind of funny that they have it. This is the first time they're meeting in person. Which
a lot has happened in a very compressed period of time.
Yes, it has.
Someone pointed out they would have met if he hadn't done January 6th, because that's usually when they, like, if they hadn't met before, that's usually when they do.
At the National Constitution Center in
at the peaceful handover of power.
Tonight, the candidates' microphones.
They're generally in the audience together, but not this time.
Each candidate will get 2 minutes for answers. There will be closing statements, but no opening statements. So we expect them to probably mix it up rather early in this as they stake out their positions and we get a sense of where all this is going.
And the mics are muted when the other is talking. So let's take you to Philadelphia now and the first presidential debate of 2024.
It's time.
Thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
Yes. And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions.
Why do we need
and
2
this is the clock.
moderators?
That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates.
Ooh, intimate.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris handed the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate. Thank you.
I don't. Oh yeah, no, it's too intimate. This is too. I don't like it. There is no. Ugh. That's weird.
So let's get started.
We need get at least another 100 people in that room.
Their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country.
I didn't even like that I could hear what they said to each other when they shook hands.
Your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother.
Only in politics, only a politician would ever utter the phrase, my passion is small businesses. Not, my passion is my small businesses.
On the other hand,
my passion is small businesses, like the concept of small businesses.
And big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on.
Look at Sleepy Dawn over there.
Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year.
When he did the eye thing, I'm like, that's Sleepy. I do that when I'm falling asleep, and I can't.
Middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have.
See, that was the insane. As soon as Biden bowed out, he becomes the old low energy dude.
But that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70.
Because the contrast is so obvious.
Just a few years ago, this has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also
because it's always been like this, the entire campaign. But because Biden had his own stuff and he was the president,
in Colorado.
And Trump's was like, I've always said Trump's, the difference is Trump is better at like improv.
And they're destroying our country. They're
where
dangerous.
When he's doing this sort of line, like sort of,
and we have to get him out. We have to get him out fast.
Like diarrhea of consciousness. He can pivot and just switch to a new conversation as soon as his he reaches a dead end with a sentence, and he just switches to something else.
Well, I would love to.
If Biden, when Biden does that, he's like, oh, just the thing, just would give up.
Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Trump yes ands his own senility, and Biden no, never mind. You know the thing, his senility.
Donald Trump left us.
Yeah, there's that too much.
On our democracy since the Civil War, and what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate
Let's see if he brings up cats.
You're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe
I've read.
That the American people want
I haven't read all of Project 2025, but I've read a bunch of it. And there's no way Donald Trump has read all of it. There's no way. There's no way he knows what's in that. I'm not saying he doesn't support it.
President Trump will give you a minute here.
But I just don't think he's going to have details tonight. There's no way he has details.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
One way or another.
That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it.
Told you. I told you.
There was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before.
Like, obviously there's stuff that people have found to criticize, but it's not exactly a thrilling read.
Since 1917, where
it's a policy document.
We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were
the contrast, like I said, is incredible now to her advantage.
But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is
Also, if you guys want to go
it's a plan that's going to bring up our
follow
work, our value
and
as a
like
country. It's going to
the
make
YouTube,
people want to be
we're
able
trying to build
go
that
and
up as
work
well.
and,
That would be very
create jobs
appreciated.
and create a lot of good, solid money for our country.
Money.
Just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill
The
down
Vice
on this
presidential
because
debates
your
on
plan
October,
is what
I think
she
it's
calls
1st,
is
is going to be,
essentially a
they're going to
national
be
sales
incredible.
tax. Your proposal calls for
Can't
tariffs,
wait.
as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan.
Yeah, they gave her that soundbite.
Tariffs up
Yeah,
to
it's called
20%
debate prep.
into this country.
Donald?
As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only
No, he does. He makes his own sound bites.
China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done.
Yeah, I saw she came in on the plane with Trump.
Look at the poll. The polls say
She's still trying to get herself unbanned from Twitter.
The Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Of all the people, too.
I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the
You'd
president
think
said.
they'd at least be able to recognize that she's a loser.
Trump tariffs in place.
Laura Loomer
Well, let's be
is a
clear
loser.
that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've
She's
ever
not
seen
a
in the
winner.
history of America.
She's a loser.
He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China.
Apparently he was
to help them
FaceTiming with some
improve and modernize their military.
right-wing social
Basically
media
sold
influencers,
us
according to
when a policy
CNN,
about China should
right
be
before the
in
debate.
making sure the United
They were
States of
probably
America
giving him
wins the
goddamn
competition
sound
of the
bites.
21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support
That would
America's
be
workforce
wild.
so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did,
I don't think
let's
even-
talk about this, with COVID,
I think
is he
Trump can
actually
even
thanked
recognize that
President
Jacob
Xi
Wall is a
for
loser.
what he did during COVID. Look at his
Not even
tweets.
that he's like, oh, I
Thank
object to his
President
views.
Xi,
He just looks at
exclamation
that dude and
point,
goes like, no.
when we know
No, I
that
don't want him
Xi
anywhere
was
near me.
responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make
Taiwan.
chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor. in
Everybody's a
economics,
Marxist.
And he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country,
See, here's the other thing is Kamala gets to do all of the like lib Democrat like
21 million people, not the 15.
looking at the
people say,
camera
"I think
facial
it's a lot higher
expressions
than
that
the 21." That's bigger than New York.
Democrats
City,
have been
Oregon, and just
doing
look at
to
what
their
they're doing to our
TVs
country.
for the past,
Many of
what?
these people coming in are criminals. And that's
8 years
bad for
now?
our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration
Probably
is the
closer
worst
to
thing that
a
can happen to
decade,
our
if we're
economy.
really being honest. I'm counting
she
the whole
has
time he was running for
destroyed
president
our
before that.
country with policy that's insane. Almost
Well, I think
policy
wasn't
that
her
you
dad
say
like
they have to hate our country.
like some sort of Marxist
I want to
professor,
turn to the
philosopher, or
issue of
something?
abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reverse course.
Oh, Lloyd Austin with some strong words.
Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion.
Yeah, a lot of them were like red diaper babies.
Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the
And it's like I'm not making any connections. I'm just saying there's a lot of these politicians who had Marxist dads whose politics are as far away from it as possible.
Because they're radical. The Democrats
It's like Mayor Pete. I mean, I guess Mayor Pete, they could be further to the right away from, but it's like they don't grow up to emulate their dad's politics.
In the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution.
Joseph Buttigieg co-translated and co-edited the 3-volume English edition of Antonio Gramsci's Prison Notebooks. Ooh, interesting. I didn't know that.
52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and
Roe v. Wade into the states? What?
Of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able
Oh yeah, there's going to be so many friggin' reaction memes out of this debate.
I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response.
Doesn't even let him rebut. Just shuts it down. That's that. There you go. Good job. Good on you.
Let's understand.
Well done.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Don't say people say or those who argue. Just say it. It's true.
In 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans.
You can report facts. Oh, I guess. All right. Sorry.
Or nurse to provide
That's a minute on the clock.
In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to
Because I know, I can tell you from experience, I know, like, it's tough, and you definitely know, and you know. Yeah. It's tough to find real fucking people in what we do. There's fake people everywhere.
To put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says.
Okay, do you all want your 6 minutes that you didn't get, or should I just start doing 3 minutes from now on?
It doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one,
All
she
right.
said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote.
We'll split the difference. I'm just going to do
especially now
another
with
3
the
minutes.
50-50, essentially 50-50 in
I'm not
both
doing 6.
Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans.
Hi, good roast mantra.
But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Oh, I forgot to unmute myself.
And let me say that the United States Congress...
No, I was just saying just the fact that he's like, oh yeah, it's probably happening, so it must be happening. If I've said it just now, then therefore it must have happened. I've put it into the universe.
1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of
after birth, an abortion after birth is just murder. We do have that line for sure, a bright red line in the sand.
For trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill?
We may not have a consensus on when, like, conception is, but definitely after it's, like, out in the fresh air, as it were.
A problem.
Yeah, it's super frowned upon. I think I can say that objectively. That post-birth abortions are almost unanimously frowned upon.
The problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
Don't do that. No, don't listen to her. Don't go to one of his rallies. If you're like one of these
talk about windmills cause cancer,
like
and what you will
suburban
also
Democrats, do not.
That's his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not
You're in the jungle, baby.
Is you.
You're gonna die.
You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why
it would be very funny, though, if, like, a bunch of Democrats in, like, Kamala Brat shirts.
First, let me respond as to the rallies.
Kamala Brat?
Kamala
Brat, it's Bratwurst summer.
There's no reason to go. And
does sound
the
like a
people
good
that do
summer.
go, she's bussing them in and
but that would be
paying
funny
them
if
to
there's
be
just
there.
all, like a
And
contingent,
then
like
showing
a
them in a different light.
soccer
So
hooligan
you can't talk
team
about
that
that.
travels
People don't
around
like my rallies.
following
We have the biggest
their
rallies, the
team.
most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is
You never believe it, folks. In Springfield, they're eating fish with 3 eyes.
rallies are concerned, as far
It's disgusting.
the reason they go,
They have this immigrant running the quickie mart, taking away a job from a hardworking yellow American.
She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
See,
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and
here's the fucked up part.
reach out to the city manager
Up
there.
until that moment, when I said, "What if he brings up the cats?" and anyone had said, I was thinking they meant the cat ladies. I completely, I forgot about this thing today.
My dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Come on, man.
Talk about extreme.
Yeah, I barely paid attention to that.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually
That was the
had
thing where they're like
endorsement
saying that like
of
immigrants are eating
200
cats and shit.
Republicans who have formerly worked with President
That was just
Bush,
on the
Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
the speed with which that went from racist internet meme to the mouth of like what could be again the most powerful man in the world.
Track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already.
What was that, like a few hours? Did that, because I barely saw that, because didn't that like all start happening, I think probably while I was having a nap after work.
His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
He's not, it's very close. Like, it's not for sure she beats him. Like, I think she's ahead maybe a couple of points, but in some polls, he's a little bit ahead, or they're tied.
Those people, not so graciously, they did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed.
Yeah, they really should have fired the White House Taliban guy. He really screwed shit up.
People, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He
didn't fire anybody, which is so funny that that's his like metric for whether or not you're doing a good job as president is how many people you fire.
And they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists.
Oh, winning in the debate.
That's a good way not to have books written about you.
I don't know if anyone's winning here. I think we're all losing.
More votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact,
yeah, that happens every election. It's called population growth.
In history, by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was
if you're the winning candidate,
so let's get back to your
you got more votes usually than the last candidate of your party who won. President
Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Yes.
You also said you would
David Itzikoff, has anyone ever won a debate by shouting, "They're eating the dogs"?
You believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is much higher.
We're through the looking glass, folks.
They allowed criminals, many
oh my God! Now he might bring up Trudeau Castro at this point. I didn't. If he's brought up the cats thing, all bets are off.
And told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this
given them to her.
Mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
I think so.
Despite their fraudulent statements.
No, I think he's saying the opposite.
Crime in this country is
that they're not incarcerating enough people.
It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime.
Defrauding statements.
Fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for.
Well, he's basically saying that the crime is down in all of these other countries, South American countries, because they're sending all of their criminals to America, and Trump does that a lot when he's mad.
And respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34
Come on, man.
So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA.
Can someone go back and clip him yelling, they're eating the dogs, and make it for me? Because I want that.
Made them go after me.
I want that as a sound alert.
Essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all.
Like how he does like a deep. Oh, I like how he did like the deep voice.
It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
Oh yeah, no, it's for sure on Twitter. I can, yeah, good idea.
President Harris on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand,
that's why Biden's doing 9/11 again.
Said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate.
It's all legal now.
The Constitution of the United States. That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain.
They're eating the dogs.
Military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails.
Oh, I'm saving
because
this one
we
for
know
sure.
Now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the
He's
threat
getting mad.
to democracy with a fake Russia.
Russia.
That went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President
Marsha. That's what I hear every time he says that. Marsha.
Mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have
a lot
had
to get
the
to.
largest
Yeah, I just found the
increase
video
in
and downloaded it.
domestic oil production in history. Because
That'll
of an
be a sound
approach
alert
that
soon.
recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hard-working mother who
Was the
worked
son of a
and
tool
saved
maker.
and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value
They're
that I bring
eating
to
the
my work
dogs.
to say we are going to
It's just-
work with the
that
private
was-
sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school.
Yeah, there's a
who was
non-zero
assaulted by
chance
her
that when you
stepfather.
show Trump
And
an
my
AI
focus
image,
then
he
on
immediately
protecting
thinks
women
they're
and
real.
children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn
Wish
Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many
A
billions.
tiny fraction
dollars,
of that
many
is like
billions.
still a
And when
couple,
people see it, they
couple
are
mil,
even surprised.
couple cool mil.
So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out.
Yes, yeah. That's the funny part is
in Minnesota,
the flank
in
of
order to let criminals that killed
defund the
people,
police
that burned down
attacks
Minneapolis, she went out and
is
raised money
for
to
the
get them out of
Democrats to
jail.
take up.
She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will.
Okay, he
never
said that
allow
in
Pennsylvania.
a
If she won the
insane
election,
way, but she
fracking in
she did say she
Pennsylvania
wants to
will end on
offer
day one. Just to finish one thing,
like
so important in my opinion.
health services to
I got the oil
transgender
business going like nobody has ever done before. They took, when they
undocumented
took
immigrants.
Over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take
I love his understanding of the world.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get to.
environment.
It's a desert. What else are you going to do with the desert?
We have an election in just
That
56
seems
days.
like a better
And I wanna talk
use
about
of
the
it than
peaceful transfer
just
of power,
being a
which, of
desert.
course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home.
we're getting Jan
Is there
6
anything
questions.
you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But
say her name.
Group of people that have been treated so badly. I asked
Trump's going to do the next debate in a big white T-shirt with Ashley Babbitt's face on it.
Remember that. She was the border czar.
Incredible turn of events.
Because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted?
Babbitt Lives Matter.
People from countries
BLM.
all over the world, not just South America.
I'm going to get
They're
myself
coming in from all over
stopping.
the world, David. All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
one of those, David, one of those people are going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis is going to be prosecuted. Or in Seattle. They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. One of those people are going to be prosecuted.
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did?
Chapo Stew House.
Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers.
Actually, Mr.
They
Dom, you were
rejected me.
president when they
Nancy
burned down
Pelosi
Minneapolis
rejected
and took
me. It
over a
was
big...
just 2 weeks ago, her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
Incredible.
I
It was
at the
Nancy
Capitol on
Pelosi's
January
job
6th.
to stop January 6th.
I was the vice president-elect. I was also
Or was that what he
an
was talking? I
acting
couldn't
senator.
follow that.
I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the
I had that
page.
one banger
Let's
tweet
not go
after
back.
Biden.
Let's
It was
chart
like
a course for the future.
revenge
Not
versus
go
nothing
backwards to
is
the
the
past.
2024 election. So at least now it's just
was a
revenge
different term,
versus.
and it was a term that related to
I gotta
energy
figure out a
because
single
they've
word
destroyed
that's
our energy
snappy
business. That
for
was where
Kamala, but
bloodbath was.
you get the
Also,
gist.
on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham,
No, it-
Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it.
Oh yeah, all
An
of the
extra sentence, they will
people
see it
in
was
Fox
perfect.
News.
It was debunked in almost every
One extra
newspaper,
sentence
but
and you'll
they
see
still
it was
bring up, just
perfect.
like they
Great.
bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this: you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say
Yeah,
it.
all
Phenomenal.
trains of
If they
thought
do that,
lead
the
to
border is
illegal
closed.
immigration in the
Those
border
people
for
are
Trump.
killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really
Yeah, Virginia's.
in these
You
times
know
that
that
we're living in.
historic
For 3.5
border,
years
Virginia and
after,
Mexico
you lost
share.
the 2020 election. You repeatedly falsely claimed that you won.
Oh my
Many
God,
times
it's only
saying
been
you won
50.
in a
There's still
landslide.
40
In the
minutes of
past
this.
couple
Good
of weeks
Lord.
leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now
You
acknowledging
said that like 2 weeks ago, Trump. You said it like a week ago.
It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look
I was
at it.
just
And they
meme.
should
I
have
was just
sent it
doing
back to the
memes,
legislatures
moderator.
for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any
Yeah, it was
sitting
like
president has ever gotten.
5
I was
days
voted
ago
by
because I remember
63, which
watching
is what I got in 2016.
with much enjoyment. I think it was Jacob Wall lose his mind after Trump said that
We need walls.
because he realized he'd ruined his life. And I'm like, yes, little piggy.
Our elections are
Be right back.
bad.
I gotta
And
go.
a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe
Is there anything
that
else insane?
perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
By the way, I was
1 minute
being
response. Let me
sarcastic.
just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister
He's
of
completely
Hungary
misunderstood
said,
the
"Why is
term
whole
strongman."
world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing
He thinks
up?
it's a term
He said,
of
"Because
endearment.
You need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting
He
him.
doesn't
China
know what
was
it
afraid
means.
of him.
Oh
North
no!
Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North
Oh,
Korea,
it's
by the
incredible.
way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
My best friend
The
is a strong
XL
man.
pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are
So-
still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris in December.
You was really good at making an entrance.
Hey,
That's what I
Stitch!
appreciate about you.
40 fucking months!
Oh, no, that makes sense.
Mr. Monkey Stick just subscribed for 40 months.
How's it going,
40
dude?
months, America.
You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always,
Security in equal measure for the Palestinians. This is interesting.
in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever. I know Putin very well.
Does he?
Would have never. There was no threat of it either.
Does he think they're talking about Ukraine?
Have gone into Ukraine.
What the fuck?
Millions of people.
What the fuck? Did I wait? Okay, so they were talking about Gaza and Palestine, right? And like Israel, Hamas. Like I didn't just imagine that, right?
She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when
He didn't just start that question of, like, am I losing it?
She was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that
I thought I was having a stroke there for a second.
2 years from now, and I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror.
Terror.
They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into
Also, yeah, this
Ukraine,
like sort of narrative that Trump was like beneficial for world peace is so funny.
Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with.
Trump immediately started thinking about compliments Kim Jong-un has given him.
Why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center. Right
Historic
here
is one word for it. All right, I think that's the second ad break. So that's the last one.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't fucking know either. I guess we learned not to do it again.
Yes, sir.
I'm fucked if I know what we did.
Yes, sir. It's hard to say.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Couldn't have it, let's be fucking honest.
I destroyed my YouTube algorithm because I went down a rabbit hole of the, like, Boogie 299 or whatever that dude is, faking cancer, and now just, I have the worst YouTube algorithm. It's terrible. Just vibe out. I don't know, CNN's on break as well. Yeah, it's beyond all mortal understanding. Oof. That probably was worse, because at least mine is just, it's a bunch of like 3-hour-long Twitch streams. Like that one is I think that's the one who like did like a 6-hour stream talking about that one girl who goes to Disneyland a lot. And I'm just like, why? How could you be that mad at her?
People that came in, they're eating the cats.
Wait.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's in Springfield, they're...
Hey, Dave, how's it going? We're on the second commercial break. If you just heard that clip, they're eating the dogs in Springfield and they're transing the illegal immigrants. Did you know that, Dave? It's been insane. Kamala's killing it. It's been, it's really helping her that immediately now that Biden has sort of bowed out. You know, I don't remember them eating Santa's little helper. In Springfield, they're eating fishes with 3 eyes. Can you believe this? Letting immigrants take American jobs at the Quickie Mart. How's it going, Greg?
Top story live from Paris, live in Tel Aviv. We are here in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Every weeknight, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Yamas, streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
I've been surprised at how many times they've left Kamala on mute and left Trump. Yeah, they're giving him a lot of leeway.
Sprint to Election Day. For now, though, let's go back to the debate live in Philadelphia.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration.
We're back.
That we must defend Ukraine from Russia.
Hey, Nazira, how's it going?
To defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest.
We're in the home stretch.
Arguing that if Putin wins,
last 20 minutes or so,
to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want?
No, they're only doing 2 ads.
To win this war?
We're well over halfway too.
That are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look.
Wait. Did he just say the numbers are worse than the Hamas numbers? The numbers Hamas is giving are fake, but the numbers are worse? What the
$150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But
I don't know. We're watching the online stream, so we don't even have to see them.
250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect in Springfield. They're eating the dogs. He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one. I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left,
yeah, no, every train of thought leads to the border immigration for Trump.
Gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, well, the first question about Gaza, as soon as it got to him, he immediately started talking about Russia and Ukraine. He's chomping at the bit to talk about it.
He's a president.
And just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president?
Which, as we know, they're eating in Springfield.
Doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done. Negotiate.
Doesn't matter who.
We have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's Eastern
You paused for an applause. I noticed that. That's great.
The work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its
Well, she's got to allow the Democrats at home to do their round of applause in their living room.
Air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine.
Yes, yeah. Like that one clip of the when they're watching Game of Thrones in the bar. I don't even know what they were watching in that bar anymore. I don't even know if it was Game of Thrones. Whatever they were cheering at.
Understand the importance of the
I think that might have been like the golden goal or something.
And what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last
nice seeing
hour.
corrections on last night, but it does feel like moderators have been teeing Harris up.
Putin would be sitting.
Yes, no, there's.
And he wouldn't have lost 300,000.
I mean, it is.
And women.
but he would have been sitting in
ABC.
Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons.
Madam Vice President, I'm talking.
He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that.
It is also funny that this is streaming on Disney Plus.
Maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her.
Yeah, it should definitely be distributed evenly.
President in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
Notice, technically, neither are the incumbent. We're just doing this election 4 years early, because she probably would have been the presumptive nominee in 2028.
And that is another one.
Anyways.
When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is, it has been about standing as America always should. As a leader.
Yeah, when she became the nominee, she sprinted to the center. Maybe a little bit past it, to the right, but
understanding that the alliances we
I'll
have
let other people
around
argue
the
that,
world
but
are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people,
Donald Trump, actor, Home Alone 2, presidential debate.
On a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Nope. Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO.
I can fact check that. We had not all the countries in NATO have paid up because Canada is nowhere close to our 2% commitment.
We're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan.
Jens Stoltenberg is still doing like cross-globe tours around, well, not cross-globe, but to NATO countries, being like, hey, give us the money you said you were going to give us. It's crazy that Trump has been so batshit here that I love fracking and give Israel weapons gets to look to be
to pull out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million.
Well, it's also like Trump's getting greedy where he's like, Kamala hates Israel.
Today, there is not
but also she hates Arabs.
The United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are.
And Trump, why does she hate Arabs? Well, ask them. They're super upset about how much she likes Israel. Well, Trump, you're an idiot. That's how that would go.
He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban.
I don't even think there's that much logic to it. Not zero.
Taliban terrorists released, and get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David.
That was a very good comedic pause.
Appreciate the role role and
And this
responsibility
former
of the
president,
of the United States
very good. I like that
to
one.
be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned.
Oh yeah, you mean
members
like
of our
that? Yeah.
military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the
I like how
negotiations with
Trump was
Taliban.
doing like the Kubrick
If you
stare
take a look
there.
at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban...
Yeah,
was
that
doing
story,
killing.
American Sniper, that's actually about
in
Trump. He
Afghanistan.
went
I
out and
don't
took
bother
those
doing that
snipers out
because,
by
They
himself.
deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo.
It'd be very funny.
It was a
Does
very
does
good
Trump
agreement.
know this
The
guy's last
reason
name?
it was good,
Can he pronounce it?
We were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left.
I'm gonna do 9/11.
$billion worth
The head of the
of brand new
Taliban,
people
Abdul. I
very
spoke with
often
him.
behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said
You
have to
blew
do
it,
this,
folks.
this, and they didn't do it. They
Now
didn't
he
do
just
it.
needs to bring
The
up
agreement
sharks.
was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
and
on.
these people did the worst withdrawal.
I've-
and
there's
in
so
my
many
opinion,
goddamn
the
people
most
online, I just
embarrassing
noticed.
moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked
Russia,
Ukraine,
Russia,
because
Russia.
they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump,
In
thank you.
Springfield,
I want to move
they're
on now
eating
to race
the
and politics
dogs.
in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
I'm sure that he's gonna handle this question with grace.
Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I
Yeah,
read
these
that
are
she
these
was
are great
not
questions.
black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I
You-
read
well,
that she
you
was
just
black,
did.
and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
It's almost
Vice
like
President Harris,
she's
your thoughts
both.
on this?
And
I
if I'm
think
being
it's- I mean,
uncharitable,
honestly, I
it's
think
almost
it's
like
a
politicians
tragedy
who
that
have
we
multiple
someone who
aspects of their
wants to be
racial
president
identity
who has
might
consistently,
highlight
over the course of his career,
one more than
attempted to
another,
use race to divide
depending on
American
who they're
people.
talking to. So if Kamala was
I do
talking
believe that
to
the vast majority of
a
us
crowd
know
that
that
had a
there's some sort of
larger
common what
Indian
separates us and what we want.
like makeup,
This kind of
she
approach
probably
that
would
is just
highlight that
constantly
she's
trying to
Indian
divide
American.
us, and
She's
especially
talking
by race. And let's
a group
remember
that is
how
more
Donald Trump
black.
started. He was
She'll highlight that she's a black woman more.
Land, he owned
It's not
land, he
lying.
owned buildings,
And maybe
he was
if I want to get even
because
more,
he
I don't know,
refused to rent
uncharitable, maybe it used to be more advantageous to her
Let's
political
remember,
career
this is
to
the
present
same
herself
individual
as an Indian
who
woman
took out
than a
a
black
full-page
woman.
ad in
That
the
doesn't
New
mean she
York
wasn't also
Times
still a black woman.
calling for the
Shut up,
execution
mantra.
of 5
Shut up.
young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5, took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor.
She's doing good. This is a good response.
A leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this. She is Biden.
Well, I mean, that is a good
She's trying to
clip.
get
That's a
away from
great
Biden.
clip
I
for
don't know
her.
the gentleman. She says, she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership.
Holy shit, that's not Joe Biden.
One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do.
You know, all the edits are tomorrow are going to be insufferable.
I believe in what we can do to strengthen our
I'm sure they'll
small
be very
businesses,
good.
which is why
And
I have a
the
plan.
base will love them,
Our
but
plans and
I'm going to
and
watch
let's
them all,
compare the
and they're going to
plans.
make me
I have a plan
increasingly more
to give startup businesses
suffered.
$50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in
I'm gonna
terms
be
of the
real
American
morning
dream
lived tomorrow.
by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She
please.
has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have
plan
to move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump,
president has
no,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now
times.
your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight,
Good luck with
9
that.
years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not
So
very
he
good
doesn't
today.
have a plan.
And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to
Oh,
replace it. But
on things
remember this.
and stuff.
I inherited Obamacare.
And they're
because
working on it.
Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my
Let
people,
it
the top
rot.
people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they.
Yeah,
have
you
really
hired
good
them
ones.
all.
The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to
No
make.
one's cutting
Do
you
I
off,
save
dude.
it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost
our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something,
Also,
I would
who's
only
the head of
change
the
it if we
Taliban?
come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too
His name's not even Abdul. Oh my God.
To do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely.
His name is
support and over the last 2
Hibatullah
years as Vice President, private health
Akhundzada?
options, but what
I
we
think
need
I'm
to do
pronouncing
is
that right.
maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But
I don't know why it took me so
Lindsay, I
long
just
to
need
be like,
respond to a
his
previous
name's
point
probably not Abdul.
that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the
If I tell you
Affordable
before I'm the
Care Act.
president, you'll just
60
steal my
times.
idea.
I was a
The
senator
concepts
at
of
the
a plan,
time,
yes.
when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate, and the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero.
Yeah, he prefers his war heroes who don't get caught.
Walked onto the Senate
Let's be
floor
specific.
and said,
Let's not
"No,
misquote
you
him now,
don't.
Kamala.
No, you don't.
I'm here to,
no, you
here to
don't
quote
get rid
tweet
of
you.
the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President
prologue
Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
made
of...
a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well,
it's
former president
definitely not banning
climate
fracking.
change is a hoax. And
Yeah, but what are
we know
you
that
gonna
is
do
very
about it?
real. You ask anyone
If you
who
think it's
lives in
real.
a state
All
who
right,
has
be right back.
experienced these extreme
Ooh, we're
weather
going into
occurrences,
overtime,
who now
10:33.
is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production, to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News
Hey,
debate
Aaron.
from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Did I just miss?
The ABC News presidential debate will continue.
Okay.
After this.
I was like, did I just miss the end of it? Ooh, shit. Is that... we're getting a third ad break? Okay, so maybe it's a little bit longer than 90 minutes. And yes, Aaron, we'll have a full debrief about this. Just incredible. Should I just jump back?
Directly with a terrorist organization
Oh, that's
called
like
the
I'm like.
Taliban. Drug prices, he never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of shipment for all.
We're private.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody.
No,
to
apparently
do
they're still
government
closing
insurance
statements.
where you
They're
wait
coming back after
6
ad
months for
breaks.
an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water.
Oh, wait, no,
Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential
I think I saw
threat.
this.
The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in
Climate change by opening more factories and building more products and cars.
Growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible.
Now remember, this is a question about climate change.
You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
I do. I have it at 1.25
Right
speed.
back.
Sorry.
Closing statements from both of our candidates. An
Just
historic night as
to try and catch up before
from Philadelphia.
they came back from ads. Oh, no worries, but I should make clear when I speed up the video.
Now is raw. How hard is it to see it like this?
Our house is no longer here, but we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC
The
News
what? The generation
We're back
of
with tonight's
now?
debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
And when it ends, please join us for analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break it down. As we enter the final sprint to Election Day, we'll go back to the debate and closing statements.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very
Right, here we go.
different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses,
Ooh, an opportunity
in new
economy.
families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will
respect
protect
our
our fundamental
authority.
rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you,
See that
I
little
started
side
my
eye there?
career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a
Well, I mean, it
witness,
is
"Are
kind
you
of what you
Republican or
want out of a
Democrat?"
military.
The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East.
Come
We
on,
have
man.
wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military.
Yeah. No, Trudeau's calling Trump on a regular basis to laugh at the Americans.
She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank
And
you for
that's
watching here
the
in the
debate.
US and all over the world and from all of us.
If you want to
here at
follow
ABC
or
News.
subscribe
Good night.
on Twitch, like and subscribe on YouTube. It's free to do both of those
And
things
welcome
on
back to
YouTube.
NBC News coverage of the debate. Pick your adjective. I would go with fiery to begin, but it goes.
That's not the adjective I'd use, but go for it.
Executing on their strategy going in for Kamala
is
Harris,
CNN?
that was to get under the former president's skin, which she did quite often. For the former president, his option was, of course, to go after the economy, after Afghanistan.
CNN always has funnier panels. So they have better beats. So I better get some raids. Cosmopolitics, I'm looking at you. No, CNN!
Most people have no
damn it.
clue that.
Alright, 1 second, I'll work on that. I can get CNN.
Is one of the biggest ones that gets under his skin. One of his allies said she clearly tried to get under his skin. He's being defensive way too much. He's losing his answers. For example, instead of borders are, we had eating pets. Of course, that theory that Springfield officials in Ohio are saying there's no proof.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Stay on message to talk about his strengths. There were some unanswered questions
Fucking
as well.
good.
It's worth noting out on both sides. Harris never answered whether you're better off than you were 4 years ago. She also didn't say what she would have done differently on immigration. Trump, by the way, didn't answer the critical question. Would he veto a national abortion ban if it came to his desk? I asked J.D. Vance if Trump would do that. He said, yes, he would. Trump said tonight, well, he didn't check with me before saying that.
Shaking his hand at the podium, kind of forcing him to shake her hand, introducing herself, and from that moment on, Dana, she took the fight right to him.
I'm just looking up. This is the quote that I think really sums up what Kamala Harris, her whole message was tonight. You're not running against Joe Biden. You're running against me. It was obviously a planned line, but it deftly explains how she kind of triangulated. And she separated herself, obviously, from Donald Trump. And where she needed to, from Joe Biden. And what was so fascinating is that she didn't do it on defense. She did it on offense. Really, in every turn, there are real weaknesses in the Biden-Harris administration, from the economy to immigration to Afghanistan. Just take Afghanistan for an example. Instead of talking about the disastrous, chaotic withdrawal, she turned it to the fact that he invited the Taliban to Camp David and talked
And then he started talking about Abdul.
Exactly.
No. What is no?
Grace, weak, things like that that really get to him. The other thing that I just want to add is that she began to turn to who she is by saying, I'm not Joe Biden, I'm Donald Trump. I'm from a new generation, a different generation of leaders. And she clearly wanted people to understand what she's made of. For people who are really wanting to know all of her 17-point policy plans, they might be disappointed. But for people who want to know who she is and what she's made of, they got it tonight. Now, the voters are going to have to decide, and it's going to take them a while to digest it, and we don't want to suggest that we have any idea how this is going to play, but those are the observations for how she handled that and the way that he did not handle it well.
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, she had a plan. She executed on that plan. The plan was
she had sound bites. She did debate prep.
Bait Donald Trump.
Didn't look like Trump did much of that.
Force him to battle on her
spoke
turf
to some right-wing influencers right before the debate, and they probably showed him some AI images of Haitians kidnapping dogs, and he thought they were real.
His sexual assault cases. He starts defending himself on that turf. She wanted to do that, but I also think I did see her trying to kind of really lay the groundwork on the policy issues that the campaign thinks will matter, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania, right? The Commonwealth, of Pennsylvania. The very first answer that she gave was about her economic policy, where she talked about the $50,000 that they want to put out there for small business owners, that they would get a tax refund. I thought that was incredibly important, because they clearly know that there were a lot of things that they put out on economic policy. Not all of them were received well. That one was received well.
Hey, Ty.
And I also thought, there were other moments where she talked a lot about her family. She talked about her upbringing. She talked about how she was raised. I mean, the plan was to not just introduce herself, but to introduce herself specifically to Pennsylvania voters so that they understood on economic policy, on fracking, where she stood. And she executed that plan, whereas Trump, I don't know what the plan was that he had.
Jake, I didn't think I was ever going to witness a debate as devastating as the one that you and Dana moderated back in June, where Joe Biden basically tanked his re-election campaign. I think tonight was just as devastating. I think that Kamala Harris pitched a shutout. On almost every subject I can think of. She shut Trump down on abortion. She shut Trump down on January 6th and democracy. She shut him down on national security and turned to the former president and said, the military leaders who served with you.
She was attacking him as the guy who wanted to defund the police.
Very powerfully at the end made the point that she is the candidate of change, and we need to turn the page from a decade of division and polarization. On substance, I think she pitched a shutout, and I think she did on style as well. I mean, the image of the debate to me is she's there happy, smiling, expressive, shaking her head and dismay at things Trump was saying. And Trump looked angry, scowling. She was looking directly at the audience. He was looking at the moderators and arguing with them. And something else.
And he was,
Donald Trump looked old tonight.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing.
Somebody said on my show on Saturday, she wins just by showing up. I didn't know that was going to be true. I think it was. Yeah. She was the candidate of change just from the moment the two of them were on the stage.
To everything that she said.
Well, what you saw really was
under control.
Vice President Kamala Harris prosecuting this debate with surgical precision.
She was aware, to Ben as a prosecutor, that the second you were inside of a courtroom, the jury is looking at everything you're doing. Muted microphones, doesn't matter. Her nonverbal cues, her body language, her incredulous expressions, at one point putting her hand under her chin to demonstrate that she was completely baffled by his line of defense. Losing a battle of expert witnesses you're talking about national security advisors, talking about Nobel laureates, talking about the whole litany of people who do not buy what he's selling. Also very well trained and seasoned and knowing how to grapple with somebody who is going to possibly be bombastic, petulant, defensive, and have a derailed effort. She focused on all of those things. I saw somebody who, when she came out, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Kamala Harris. On behalf of Kamala Harris, she came out with that in mind, and I think she executed. Now, Donald Trump tried to derail her a number of times, but notice I'm saying the words Donald Trump in the way she did. It wasn't President Trump. She was referring to him as similar as you would in a courtroom. The defendant, the defendant.
You're not her.
His title reminding you of what, how did she phrase it? What he left us with. It was a really dynamite performance.
So, Anderson, I mean, his lack of parrying, his lack of making Kamala Harris and the Biden-Harris record the focus. I mean, if you watched this debate and you didn't know that she was the incumbent vice president, you saw a debate where Donald Trump was really on defense, and he and his record were the subject of the debate, not the incumbent leader.
Kamala Harris did tonight what no governor, senator, politician, business person who has run against him in primaries in 2016, and certainly anything he faced in 2020, has figured out what no one else figured out how to do. Certainly Marco Rubio.
Make him mad.
Going after little hands. He debased himself, as many have. I want to show just some key moments where she needled Donald Trump on the most sort of obvious, basic things that we all know he has said, we all know are weak points, to devastating effect. Let's just take a look.
Yeah, she actually, she said, I'm sorry, with all due respect, Mrs. Obama, I'm going fucking low.
Unemployment since the Great Depression.
I'm gonna hit him.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
That's my favorite
one. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. If you
He's terrified of sharks. That's one thing we know for sure.
Who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him.
John King, it was the moment she talked about his crowd size of all things, and people, not even was crowd size, it was people being bored and leaving his rallies early. I don't think he ever
You went to a Trump rally before he was popular?
And he never stopped.
She triggered him there. I think she was uneven at the top. Not a bad answer, first answer in the economy, but not a great answer. She got her footing during the abortion conversation, where she felt more comfortable. And then she triggered him with the people leave your rallies. And he lost it. And he was angry. From that moment on, his voice went up. He started angering. He told a lot of lies. Daniel Dale's going to be up all night. We should start a GoFundMe for his espresso machine. He did. And so what did she do? She triggered him on COVID, January 6th and democracy, abortion, chaos,
That's where I heard
lies, and his anger.
That's interesting.
Those
Trump
are
has
the
a
issues
very
that turned the American
eclectic
suburbs
taste
away
of
from
music
Donald
when it
Trump and
comes to
why he lost the
the
2020
music he plays
election.
before his
Those
rallies.
are the voters who were waiting to see if she could stand there and be a plausible president next to him. She cleared that bar. That doesn't mean she won their votes, but she cleared that bar with 8 weeks left in the election. She stood next to a former president, and she more than held her own. And on many of the issues, she schooled him. She simply schooled him because she triggered him into his lies and into his anger, which does not sell well with the middle of the electorate that will decide things 8 weeks from tonight.
You know, I've been involved in a lot of these. I helped prepare a candidate for these debates, 6 of them. And I've been watching them since I was a little boy. I've scarcely seen a one like this. and the degree to which she dominated this. And, part of it was butt kicking, and part of it was kind of someone doing it themselves in. I said earlier jokingly
Trump 2028.
That, when they said he's a Muhammad Ali.
Well, I made that
debates,
joke because this is kind of just the 2028 election
really knocks himself
early.
Out. He kind of helped, but she set him up, as John said. But these things are more than about issues. These things are tests. These campaigns, these debates, they're oral exams for the hardest job on the planet. Sure. And people judge you in these moments, and they judge whether you have the mettle to stand up to that pressure, to be coherent, to deliver a case. And she certainly did that tonight.
She whooped him. She just whooped him.
She whooped him.
And I think that there's been a desire. In good fiction, there's like wish fulfillment. Like, you watch a movie because you want something to happen, like some great romance. People have wanted to see somebody put this bully in his place. And people have watched contender after contender fail to
the
put him in
sauce
his
is gone.
place. She got up there and she put him in his place. She baited him. And then
that's why I love the CNN panels, because they just stuff as many people on him as possible.
And not only did she pass the commander-in-chief test, he failed
because they know they just have to fill as much time as possible. Because they're not going to do news.
Dealing with a dictator? When he
but
can
they're
literally
just
be,
like, you know how much
you could
ad money
see
they're bringing
the
in?
Punches coming.
Just having
he
these people just yap.
I mean, if you can so unhinge somebody by saying people leave your rally, any world leader can manipulate you into anything.
So I think that she passed the test. He failed it. But I think also she was speaking for the people. She really was speaking for the people. I think the right wing may not see it, but she kept coming back to a middle-class background. He kept talking about himself and himself. He went down every rabbit hole imaginable. Kamala Harris did something great for every parent in America. She put the bully in his place.
Yeah, I can't add more to what you guys have said using political terms such as butt whooping. But Harris hacked Donald Trump tonight. And we talked earlier, I mentioned, being unconventional, which he has been all these years, doesn't mean he's unpredictable. And it turned out she could use a Mad Libs of triggers of everything he's ever talked about or been bothered by and use them in a formula that was to first talk about an attack line he might have said to her, take a topic she was weak on, and follow it up with a trigger for him, and then watch him spin himself in circles trying to defend it. And at the start of this conversation, at the start of the night, we talked about who's going to look like an incumbent versus who's going to look like a challenger. And I think she made herself look like the challenger to a person and really kind of ran through his record.
I mean, you know him well. I mean, even on the immigration question, she quickly turned it and totally emasculated him and got him discombobulated.
She dismantled him and made it that on the issues he should be the strongest on, border security, the economy, he ended up relitigating his rallies and talking about his crowd sizes. I mean, she put the bait out there and he took it. And I'm hearing from Republicans, because I'm trying to think from the perspective of, okay, if you're a Trump viewer at home, what are you thinking? Sitting Republican lawmakers who objectively think she won the debate, but also that the mask is starting to slip with Donald Trump, that this is the man who projects himself as strong, as in command, and in fact, he simply is not, with just a minor challenging, asking for more substantive questions, asking him to lay out a health care plan, basic things. He just can't do it, certainly not the way he could have in previous years.
John,
to the health care point, I think the moderators did a
And
very
she's
good
got
job
the
of the idea
A-team,
that,
a
you were
Secret
president
Service.
for 4 years.
Trump's
Now
an
it's 3.5 years of
ex-president,
Joe
so
Biden.
he's got
You ran for
B-team
president a
at
couple years
best.
before you were president. And
And
Donald Trump
from
said the best he could
what
do
we've seen
about the
recently,
Affordable Care Act,
probably
Obamacare,
at
has
best
some concepts and
C-team,
some
probably.
ideas. That issue was perilous for the Democrats in the first 2 years when it was being implemented because the change hadn't been fulfilled yet, and change is scary when it comes to something so personal like your health care. It's one of the most popular issues in the country right now. It has been a huge boon for Democrats. And again, I'm going back to, if you're a Trump voter, I'm getting incoming from some of the Trump voters I've met in my travels, and they're defending him. But the Republican strategists, they're not surprised. Because they know Donald Trump, they know he takes the bait, but they're really disappointed.
Which one is that? I haven't watched
have
The View in a
answers
while.
on
Have they added
policy
new
questions? To your point about immigration, that on what should be his issue, he took the bait and was talking about conspiracy theories and other things. And on policy proposals that matter to the people who will settle the election, he had nothing to say.
I think she showed up as herself. She is
I feel like I would have
prosecutor.
noticed if Whoopi Goldberg was on this
She can prosecute
panel.
the case. She is not afraid to hold people accountable. That is how she started her career, and she did just that. And she laid some breadcrumbs in her opening statement talking about, you're going to hear a lot of lies. And every time she tripped him up a little bit, she didn't then try and respond to him.
Oh,
she just
okay.
said, see what I told you. I told you what you were going to get. I'm keeping them honest. She also helped turn the page when she said, you're not running against Joe Biden. That was a subtle reminder for Americans for the last 2 years that said they didn't want that rematch. And the last time they watched
she
the debate,
looks
it
like
was
a
rematch,
Trump
and she
staffer.
was like, guess what, folks? I'm here. Here's an alternative. Here's a path to the future. And the final thing I'll say is that I'm texting with some folks who are doing Dow testing, focus groups during this debate. Undecided voters in Georgia. First, the gender gap is massive. It's about a 20, 30-point gender gap on her responses. But one of Trump's worst answers was his response to COVID. And that was really when he started to unspiral and unravel, and he couldn't get back on track. I mean, say what you want, friends, but she nailed it tonight.
Okay, now from the other side.
The other America.
Yeah, the other America, right? The red America. Yeah. So, John, I
would
agree
assume
that she
so.
passed the
These
test,
are
that she looked
probably all
presidential,
of their,
that she
like,
do a good job up there. She did pass that test, but she
paid
was very light.
pundits.
You know, you're complaining about Trump saying you don't have details on your plan. No details provided on anything here, but for her, she was very good at kind of rattling off her 2-minute answers, but then never really answered the questions. I think red America will look at this and say, I mean, I see it in the tweets. I never thought I'd say this, but CNN did such a great job on the debate and being fair, where ABC was not fair. This was a 3-on-1 at times versus Trump. They were demanding Trump be very specific on answers. But Kamala Harris, when asked about her values changing and having to articulate the differences of why she was for reparations, not for reparations, she said, they listed a very long list, and she said, I'll get to each of those. And then she didn't get to any of them.
I would be curious to see the time, who had more time, because my sense was that Donald Trump was given more time. I don't know.
No, but I'm just saying, Anderson, but my point is not time. My point is there was not a demand. David Muir didn't say, well, Madam Vice President, are you going to answer that question? Where he did do that with Trump. There was more aggressive follow-up on the Trump questioning than there was on
transgender operations and aliens. It's really unfair to those Americans playing video games.
It's supposed to be a neutral territory, right? And when the moderators
how many drinks is that?
Scale, Republican voters are going to watch this.
I think it was two very specific questions, like yes or no. Is there anything you regret about January 6th? No answer.
Well, then how about this? How about this? When she was pressed, and I thought this was particularly disgusting for me. When she was pressed on Afghanistan, she didn't say, yeah, I regret that 13 young men and women died there. And I regret that I did not, in the 3.5 years as vice president, meet with their families.
She didn't.
I mean, she didn't say that.
Scott.
And nobody followed up on that. And that is disgusting to me.
I agree with David that you're going to hear some carping from Republicans about, this wasn't a debate, it was a trial, and there were 3 prosecutors. Definitely going to hear that. But it is a little hard to complain about the refs when you're not making your own jump shots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the first 15 minutes of this debate, he won. The questions were on the economy. He had it right. He had it right on inflation. Even on the tariff question, I think he had it right. And then, inexplicably, on immigration, that's where she derailed him. And from that point forward, she basically dictated the flow. Now, in the closing statements, when he said, you've been there for 3.5 years, why haven't you done it? That really should have permeated. That's his best argument. It really should have permeated everything. She peppered all of her answers with, I have a plan, I have a plan. He should have retorted every time, you've been there 3.5 years.
That seems like the only thing they worked out in advance, that he had sort of in his mind, okay, this is something we're going to say.
But look, she did not put a lot of meat on the bones. I agree she passed the competency test. She did tell some of her own lies, and she left some things out there. But overall, she dictated the flow.
I want to go to Caitlin Collins in the debate spin room with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Caitlin?
Yeah, thanks, Anderson. I'm here, and it is timely given we are talking with the Pennsylvania Governor, Josh Shapiro, about how Taylor Swift just came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. I know that you were claiming Taylor Swift is one of Pennsylvania's
own. We claim Taylor Swift, a Berks County native.
But we're here
Taylor Swift
watching this debate. You were
what?
just watching it. What were your main takeaways of how Vice President Harris did coming into this?
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
She would fare on that debate stage.
Caitlin, I think we spoke a few weeks ago, and I expressed to you that I was a little bit worried the American people had a little bit of brain fog.
Good
about Donald Trump.
Moogly, ladies and gentlemen.
He was.
The Taylor Swift endorsement has landed. Let's read it, shall we? Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now is a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you the most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about their proposed policies and plans for this country. Recently, I was made aware that AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ+ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find, she's a maybe I don't know if it's her or whoever she has on her team. This is genius. This is genius. Where she can almost say that this isn't an endorsement. She's just explaining who she's voting for and why, because she's fighting disinformation, because it was because people were fighting over it. This is genius. She's a genius. This is so smart. It's done. It's done. It's done. Like there was a point at which I thought that endorsements didn't matter. This one I think will make a dent. I think it's gonna make a dent. Game over, boys and girls. Game over.
2016, it was 44,000 votes that divided the two candidates. 2020 was 80,000 votes. About a percentage point or less. I don't know, but we're no stranger to close elections. The good news is Kamala Harris understands that last part.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man.
We now go live to Trump campaign headquarters.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
You finished?
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna...
Right?
I'm not.
But Governor,
Jake,
first of all, the Phillies beat
governor's
Tampa
not
Bay.
hearing
Oh, he's not hearing. Okay. Go ask him this. Should the Harris campaign focus... Should the Harris campaign focus more on the independent
Eagles
voters
shout
in
out.
Erie
Go Birds!
or the Republican women in the Collar counties around Philly? If they had to choose.
Why did I not wear my Eagles hat
He
the
asked,
whole
I
time?
believe, if the Harris campaign should focus more on independent women in Erie or on moderate women voters in the other surrounding counties. Was that it, Jake?
No, on independent voters in the Erie area or Republican women in the Collar County.
Or Republican women in...
Sure. Look, Jake, I'll tell you, everywhere in Pennsylvania matters, particularly if this election is going to come down to just tens of thousands of votes. I think you understand that. David Urban on your panel certainly understands that. There are a whole lot of people in the Philadelphia suburbs. If you look at the suburbs as sort of its own entity, it's more than 2 times the size of the city of Philadelphia. So there's a lot of voters there, a lot of people to talk to, and I know that the vice president's going to be spending a lot of time in the Philadelphia suburbs. I also know that that going to Erie is important as well. Take that from me. A governor who's been there many, many times. I think our soon-to-be Vice President Tim Walz was in Erie just last week. That's critical as well. But you got to show up. You got to let folks ask you questions. You got to let your tires get kicked. And you got to show the good people of Pennsylvania you care about their neighborhoods. And I know Kamala Harris is going to do that.
All right, Governor Josh Shapiro, thank you for that. Jake, back to you.
Thank you so much. You know, one of the things that's so interesting about tonight, as opposed to the interview you did with Vice President Harris, was that a week ago? I don't even know when it was.
10 days ago.
Anyway, you asked her about the racial comments when Donald Trump said that she never identified as black before. I mean, it's nonsense. It's a lie, whatever.
Right.
She wouldn't even talk about it.
Right.
Tonight, she
Go
ran
Birds.
through the litany of Donald Trump's racist
Go
history,
Birds.
from being sued by Nixon's housing department or Department of Labor for not renting to black tenants, to the Central Park Five, to birtherism, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and again, he took the
In
bait every single
Springfield,
time. He's
they're
literally
eating the
there
dogs.
defending the indefensible in terms of his calling for the death penalty for the Central Park Five.
Hey, Techie, how's
but
it
my
going?
point is, she actually discussed it. I don't think
Go
that she
Birds.
was waiting for a bigger audience, 100 million people watching tonight or whatever. I think that that Trump continues to make inroads with black men, and she felt like she probably had to staunch some of the bleeding on that issue.
I think both can be true. I thought her response to my question was, same old stuff. Next question, she was ready to say something pithy and kind of the back of the hand, like.
It's my favorite video. He's so distance. It's so good.
Condescending and patronizing, but also demonstrably inaccurate based on the statements that she actually laid out as to his concern for race and gender and beyond. And I think that she was waiting to address that particular moment in a way not to choose her audience, but to respond to what he had to say. And I think
how's your night going,
the
Techie?
idea of her talking about her race and her gender, which are both quite obvious to the American voter, the American people. I think in many ways that
don't know
is
if you've
an
already
attempt
done it,
for
but
him to
if you
try
could
to
like and
bait her to
subscribe. We're
suggest
trying to
that
build
is
up the
Trump
YouTube a
over
little
her
bit.
qualifications, her skills,
We're also on Twitch
her
if you wanna
value
jump
adds
over,
as
either
a
one.
contributing member of the administration, as a
Either or.
senator, as an AG and beyond. And I think she's cognizant of the way in which America also views women of color in positions of power. And I think that she was waiting for the opportunity to address a specific claim as opposed to, what do you think about race and racism?
It also felt to me like there were some really key parts of it that she laid down there for Trump to pick up, and then he just went and picked them up. Like he defended.
Hell
to
yeah.
your point, he
Thank you.
defended his
Pumping
false
blinkers.
accusations against the Central Park Five. He literally did not have to do that, but he decided to do it. He also then went down a rabbit hole on Charlottesville. I mean, it's useful to the Harris campaign to have Trump revisit all of the most unpopular parts of his history and his personality and his attitude and his lack of remorse. That is a useful thing, more so than her defending her own race and racial identity, which honestly she barely did. I mean, she did it very briefly, and then she just created a scenario in which Trump just went down a rabbit hole that was set for him. That was honestly the whole debate in a nutshell.
I was going to say it happened over and over again.
It's an incredible
on
image.
the issue of 2020 and relitigating that. I talked to a top aide this weekend
This is
who said
Rachel
he
Maddow
wants to do
reading
it.
the
He
Taylor
knows he
Swift
shouldn't.
endorsement to
He's
Tim
been
Walz
told
live on
that
MSNBC.
Being forward-looking is a much better strategy for success, which I took to mean he'll probably do it.
I guess Taylor Swift is the queen.
He did do it.
Can we talk about Taylor Swift?
Yeah, let's talk about this for
Oh,
people
here we
that
go.
hasn't been mentioned on our
I think yes, with Governor Shapiro.
Okay,
but
so
we need
Taylor-
to give it a more fulsome report.
Taylor Swift on Instagram endorsed the Harris Walz ticket. She says she's doing it because Harris, quote, fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who's been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. She goes on to say, I've done my research, I've made my choice, your research is all yours to do. Interestingly, she signs it with love and hope, Taylor Swift, childless, cat lady, an allusion to Senator J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, insulting Democrats as childless cat ladies.
And she was holding a cat in that photo.
The name of the cat, I've been reliably informed, is Olivia Benson.
Well, one of her cats was Olivia Benson. I cannot
Olivia
confirm that the cat
Benson,
she was holding
it's
in
the-
that picture.
Mariska Hargitay?
Is Olivia Benson. But I
We cannot confirm or deny whether the cat in the photo
many
is
Swifties
named
out there. But
Olivia
let's just talk
Benson.
about what this means.
What does it mean? What is the significance of a celebrity endorsement?
It's not just a celebrity endorsement.
One of the biggest celebrities in the world.
The biggest
Taylor
celebrity in
Swift's
the
cat are
world. But it's
related.
not just that she's a celebrity. She has people who are, I mean, like Swiftologists. I mean, there are people who are young people, young women, who might not already be engaged in politics, who read and listen to every single thing that she says and love her. And if she makes a difference, even on the margins, in a race like this, that is a huge difference. This was the endorsement that the Harris campaign, they were hoping for more than anything else.
No one will ever say no to a Taylor Swift endorsement. I 100% agree with that. I think it's significant to all. It is always significant to have the most powerful force in pop culture on your side. The one contrarian view I will say is that in this moment, the thing the Harris campaign needs perhaps the most is to figure out how to reach men. They've got to figure it out here in Pennsylvania. They've got to figure out how to reach black men.
I know this is going to sound,
I'm not
but
sure
that's
Taylor Swift
not
helps them
wrong.
with that. It's a totally different ball game that Taylor Swift is in, but they've got to figure that part out.
Travis Kelce, on the other hand.
Maybe if Travis Kelce comes
Honestly,
around, we'd be having a different
Tapper,
conversation,
you're not wrong.
I think that it's just important to remember that.
If they get the
in
double
this
tap, if they get
Commonwealth
the
of
Kelce,
that is
the
just,
Kelce
it's
brothers.
A give and take here, where
I mean,
you
now
gain
that
some
Swift
and you
is
lose some, and
endorsed
she really
Biden,
needs to start gaining.
Don't
Travis
wanna
Kelce's
rush us
going
off
to do it,
the
of
Taylor
course.
Swiftology discussion. And
Then you get his brother.
I do want to.
Then you get the Two Bears One Cave pod.
Harris campaign put out a release and has challenged Donald Trump to another debate. That had been somewhat in doubt, and they say, we're ready for another
Let's
debate.
go.
My guess is after the vice presidential debate in October, but they're ready for round two.
So CBS is doing the vice presidential debate, and I think NBC is supposed to do the next presidential debate.
But that hasn't been locked down, confirmed, but that is
They've
sort
put
of
an
the
offer on the
expectation.
table.
Well, can I just correct something before we move
Oh,
on
I'm sorry.
fully from Taylor Swift?
Oh, boy.
The cat's name is Benjamin Button.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Let's
can I just say one thing?
I'm glad we got to the fucking bottom of that
She is very
one.
clearly showing people that reproductive rights is on the ballot, very much so. She talked about in that actual statement about her research about Tim Walz, the governor, and his work with this particular area. And so, for those who think that Roe v. Wade is an invisible ink on the 2024 ballot, it very much is.
They
in
might
a
say it on
Sharpie
their
pen.
pod.
And that's why Kamala Harris's dissection of her references to what
Benjamin
voter
Button is
would
a good
want was so important in the reproductive rights conversation.
Ty, this is why I like about you. You're making sure to get those analytics
Dale was listening closely
boosted.
to both candidates. Daniel, what stood out to you?
Watching and commenting on both streams. Hell yeah, this is why we're friends.
From former President
This is why we friends supporting friends. I love it.
After subject. By my preliminary count, Jake, Trump made at least 33 false claims. 33. By contrast, by again a preliminary count, Vice President Harris made at least one false claim, though she added at least a few misleading claims and a few more that lack key context. I think a lot of Americans say, well, all politicians lie. No major presidential candidate before Donald Trump has ever lied with this kind of frequency. A remarkably large chunk of what he said tonight was just not true.
Yeah, I
And
had
this
to go to
wasn't like
YouTube
little
and
exaggeration,
look. I was like,
political
oh
spin.
yeah,
A lot of his
that's
false
you.
claims were untethered to reality. On abortion, saying every Democrat wanted Roe v. Wade overturned, though actually more than 80%.
In
of
fairness, it's
Democrats
hard to
supported
fact check
Roe. On
Kamala when
crime,
she doesn't
saying it's
actually
through the
say
roof, though it's
anything
actually sharply
concrete.
down since early 2023.
She
It's
was
now lower
mostly
than it was
just
since Trump left
attacking
office.
Trump,
On
and
healthcare,
like
saying he's the one who
she
saved
can. And in
Obamacare,
fairness, she was
the
being
law he actually
accurate with all of her
repeatedly tried to
attacks,
overturn.
but
on Kamala Harris herself, saying that a Howard University grad, Black Law Students Association president, had claimed that she wasn't black at one point. Frankly, I don't have enough time here to run through each specific Trump false claim. I urge people to go to our CNN website or our app to read our team's detailed
No, yeah,
fact
no,
checks
she
on
doesn't
this
sound
and a whole
old
bunch
or
more.
tired,
let's
and
dive
she's
into one
she's
false
fresh
claim Trump
and
made,
new.
An egregious claim about migrants supposedly eating people's pets.
Trump is a loser.
In Springfield, they're
definitionally
eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Lancelot's, Dr. Lancelot's
I think it's fair to call this odious. This, for people who have not been online in the last couple of days, this claim about migrants, Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, eating people's pets originated with a Facebook post that attributed the claim to a neighbor's
or
friend's
someone who
daughter.
wasn't a previous,
a
like the wife
broken
of a
telephone
previous
kind of thing.
president.
The city of Springfield and the Springfield police say there are no credible reports of this happening. And even J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate who himself had promoted these claims, acknowledged this morning that the, quote, rumors might turn out false, although he still encouraged people to spread these cat memes. Now, I'll note that Trump himself added dogs to the equation. They had not even been part of these viral nonsense rumors before. Now, let's look at one false claim that Vice President Harris did make about the economic situation that the Biden-Harris administration was left by Trump.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
So the Biden-Harris administration was not actually left the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. They were left a 6.4% unemployment rate in January 2021. That was certainly elevated by recent standards, pretty high, but it was significantly down from the 14.8% level it reached early in the pandemic. So it was already improving at the time the Biden-Harris administration took office. And that 6.4% level was the highest since the Great Recession. So in the last 20 years, not going back decades further. Anderson?
Daniel, thanks very much. A lot to go through. We appreciate it. One other thing on the
had to throw one in there.
It's interesting in her statement.
Wonder how hard he had to look to
she
find
said, recently
that
I was
one.
made aware that AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual
front loading it like that and using that as
interesting that she's citing Donald Trump or somebody sort of in the campaign, I don't know where that site was, but a
to make this endorsement.
I think it's really another self-owned. I mean, they were really dumb to bait her because she was standing on the sidelines. We were hoping she might come out, but they.
It's 11:30, and we're at nearly 4 hours, so I think we're gonna call it a night. So, thank you so much for watching the debate with me. So I wasn't just yelling at the TV on my own. If I hadn't streamed, it just would have been the same thing, but I would have just been yelling to nobody. So I appreciate that. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks for stopping by, Ty. Thanks everyone else for hanging out. And actually, is there anyone still streaming? So we might as well raid somebody. So who's still going? Who's going? Who's still streaming? Let's see. Screw it. I'll just drop you off at. I made fun of serfs, so we'll drop you off.
Yeah. Because then the Republicans would actually win the election.
Right. Unless
I mean, they could still win, but it's
unless there was a guarantee that Trump had to be replaced by JD.
It's a laughing cartoon.
There we go.
That's very weird.
That's
patronizing.
Crowd cheer.
We're probably finishing soon.
Thank you, J-Man G. Oh my God, so generous. What's up, friends? Just got done trying the local fair of cats and dogs in Springfield. I know, bad joke, but I couldn't help myself. It is insane that they thought that would even land with anybody apart from people who are already insane.
All right, let's see if this
Abby,
works.
Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala.
How does that not
Justin,
the right
Harris
one?
has to stop saying most lethal army in. Yes, for sure.
I can only hope.
Are they not the
Car
serfs?
Wash Freak, I bet the good folks of the RNC is crapping the pants.
Oh, they don't allow for raids. Well, that's interesting. So I guess we're not raiding the serfs. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why. We'll raid Amy.
Very fair to both sides, goes back and finds, he's done a lot of exposés on people who had plagiarism in the books they wrote, and he's definitely gone after some conservative figures, but he also holds Democrats accountable. Just publicizing, voters ought to know. You can agree with it or disagree with it, but Kamala Harris answered an ACLU survey indicating wanted to decrease ISIS funding, wanted much fewer detentions of illegal migrants, and
all right, everybody.
Publicly funded gender transition surgeries for the illegal immigrants who want them. It's not something one wants to run on as a policy issue, I don't think.
Good night, good
which
luck.
is why
Kobe, nice to Amy.
The CNN host was
so
kind of, you could see her really struggling.
Or maybe
like,
Saturday.
My God, why did Harris say this? I know this is unpopular. So bad. Help.